Mike, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but there's no volume from your end. You're on mute.
You were muted, I'm sorry. It usually
Thank
Oh,
you. You put yourself on mute.
got it.
So we should just apologize.
Yes. We will,
It was only the pledge and the roll call.
yeah, the pledge and the roll call, and my apologies for that. We were on mute. It has been corrected. Thank you, Mary Lou, for telling us.
You're welcome.
Okay, all town board members and the town clerk are present. We will start with town board accepts the agendas prepared by the town supervisor. There are a number of additions that came in yesterday and today, with this being an early week meeting when normally we meet on Thursday. So we will be adding 3 resolutions. One is a correction to the dollar amount in the highway abstract. When we were entering it, we caught an error. One is an after-school aid appointment. One is a summer rec program funding application that must be submitted by the end of this week. They just told us yesterday. And we are going to add a discussion regarding the transfer station and an executive session dealing with a matter about a particular employee. So with all those additions, I'd ask for that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The financial report, we have not printed the supervisor's report yet. However, I do have the dollar amounts. The revenue for November 2023, $57,260.15. The revenue for the highway fund, $1,328.48. We await the large CHIPS check that should be coming in the next 2 weeks. Expenditures, general fund, $149,814.30. The highway fund is $104,507.87. And Charlotte, that 12-cent mistake, and I'll explain it in the resolution. Capital fund is at 0. The street lighting fund expenditure was $436.64. The ambulance fund was $0 expenditure. The escrow fund, $3,559.90. The total expenditures for November, general fund, $200,692.44. Highway fund, $135,274.25. Capital fund, 0. Street lighting fund, $436.64. Ambulance fund, 0. Escrow fund, $3,559.90. The correspondence report, I forwarded to you various correspondence received, and we will be discussing some of them in resolutions and discussion tonight. Upcoming events, I want to make everybody aware, and I have flyers here for the board members. There's also flyers up front. The Spittle Road Bridge replacement project. We will be having a public information meeting on December 13th, next Wednesday, from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. here in the community center. This will be a meeting where people can come. The engineers who are designing this HVEA from Poughkeepsie will be presenting the plans for the bridge. This is being funded 95% by the New York State DOT Bridge New York program. It's in design stages now. The preliminary designs have been accepted by the New York State DOT. We will continue the process, and at some point in 2024, we will be going out to bids for contractors for construction. And the plan is to construct this in the spring of 2025. And we will be doing, it won't be constructed in place. It will be a formed bridge that will be brought in on tractor trailer and craned into place. I'm still waiting to watch that happen. It's gonna be an interesting thing, so. But informational meeting, if anybody cares to attend and see what's presented and ask questions.
Is it being streamed?
We can, we absolutely can.
I will be out of town, so it'd be great.
We will do our best to stream. O&W Rail Trail Project, Calucci Construction, who was doing the work. I saw Paul over the weekend, actually, at another event, Paul Calucci. They are, the trail itself is done. They continue to work on the two bridges. They anticipate that they will be completed by the end of the year. That is the hope. The kiosks, the two kiosks that we bought, the new one for here and the new one at Burn Road, are in their possession, and they will install them. And his exact words were, for the price, those were really nice kiosks. He was very, very impressed with the quality. And actually, Gardner, who also redid their rail trail, did not redo their kiosk, and he's going to recommend that they buy one of these kiosks and replace theirs with it. So that's the O&W Rail Trail project. That entire project, with the exception of the cost of the kiosk and the paving of the parking area, was funded through Ulster County ARPA money, and Open Space Institute was the project manager on that project. So that was funded 100% by Ulster County and ARPA funding. The grant updates, the Algerville Firehouse, we are finally making progress on the siren control situation. The existing controls were not going to be able to be reused. It was not discovered until late in the process. Marbletown was kind enough to donate from the firehouse that they closed down the controls. So we're now coordinating with everybody to rent the boom lift that needs to be rented to get to the siren, to connect all this together. It should be happening sometime in the next 2 weeks. The water situation, it was not present originally, but methane was discovered in the water there. It is being addressed in a filtration system that the fire district is putting in, and they are handling that directly. So once that happens, and once the siren is, that project will be complete. And I'm hoping that that's by some point in January that is finally done, and we can turn it over to the fire district. So
We did something for water though.
we
It's a
did. We
bill
put in a
last year.
filtration system because the new well was dug. The previous well was not able to be reused. So we had put in a sediment filtration system that is installed.
Paid that last week.
We paid it, but it will be reimbursed to us by New York Rising funding. The last few, because part of the projects were not originally in the budget, the only way to do it is it's called a micro purchase, anything under $10,000 toward the end of the project. And this one is one of those. So in order to get it done, we paid for it. I'll submit it to New York Rising as a micro purchase. We'll get reimbursed 100% from their funding.
Is the fire district gonna get reimbursed or is that outside?
The fire district will get reimbursed whatever we can reimburse them out of what is left over. We need to, our filtration system, the flooring, which was originally not part of the specs. Originally, the fire district was going to put in the flooring, and then we did do it as a micro purchase. And the siren, once those purchases are paid off, whatever dollar remain can be turned over to the fire district towards the methane.
Okay.
And they're aware of that. They're okay with that. We actually found a very reasonably priced company out of New Paltz who's doing that installation. And so they should be able to get back a portion of it.
Okay.
And they're fine with that. I went and spoke to the fire commissioners at their meeting, and that's why, in order to expedite it, because they can't turn the water system on, and with it getting colder, they want to get all that done so they can turn the water system on and turn the heat on so it doesn't freeze up.
Yeah, okay.
So all things that showed up at the last few months. The Boyce Mill Road Bridge, obviously, I already spoke about that, and the Ulster County ARPA Park funding. We are still awaiting the finalized contract from the county. Once we receive that, we can put together requests for proposals for the septic system, for the new bathrooms. For the public who may not be aware, we applied for funding, $100,000 funding to Ulster County for park grants, and we are installing permanent bathrooms in our park. For all the people that use our park, they no longer will have to use porta potties, so we're installing. It's a matching grant in that we have to match it 100%, so we are matching it, but the county will be funding $100,000 of it. And the total project estimate at this point is about $275,000. So we will be spending a little more than our match, but still to get almost half that money funded back from a grant, it's a good thing. So once we get the contract signed, I'll be bringing in a request for proposals for both the septic design and then the bathroom construction. And the sign, we got the new sign already, and the pavilion roof, we already have hired a contractor for that. Mary Lou, anything to report? You're muted.
I was glad to have the opportunity to tell you guys you were muted. You tell me about 3 times every meeting. So I felt good about that. Just a couple things. Mike, you had mentioned that the assessor had made a recommendation about making amendments to our law because New York State has changed law for senior tax exemptions.
Yes.
They also changed changes for property owners with disabilities and limited income. I've
Yes.
looked through them both. I also agree with Jeremy that we should change those. I do have a sample. If you'd
Okay,
like
because I
me
was
to
going to
go
tell
ahead.
you the same, and I have a sample from Marbletown that
Yeah,
Jeremy.
me too. And then I changed it for Rosendale as well.
Okay.
So if you'd like me to change that for you guys.
Yep, if you could change that for us, and I was going to
I'll
ask you to
change.
do that
Yep.
so I can present it at the next meeting.
Exactly. And
we
then you can have
the
your public
hearing
hearing.
in January on it. Yep, or maybe the end of December. So.
We're on the same page there.
Yep.
Also, you'll recall the Tetlow easement. They're the people with the
Yes.
fence. They're our neighbors along the rail trail. I had spoken with their attorney, told them changes we needed in the easement. He has gotten me an amended easement agreement. I will look at that. I will send it to the supervisor to look at as well, but I believe we're in good shape there to get that signed, and they will record it in the county clerk's office.
And we adopted a resolution.
Yeah, you did, right, and it was with my approval. Right,
Yeah.
it was for me to approve the final, so
Right.
I expect, just so you know, the next 3 days, I'll be out of town and you can guess where, but it starts with Lake and ends with Placid. So I'll do it early next week.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Well, we can get it and I can share with the board on the 14th, so.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, that's it.
Anything else? Okay. Kate, town clerk tax collector report.
As far as tax collector, I ordered the tax bills yesterday, so we're gonna hope that they'll be here the last week of December to have that the first business day in January, so look for those coming soon. Town clerk, we have not been able to get the monthly report done, and we kind of are a little bit behind because last week, as many of you know, was a very contentious week. Well, my office definitely dealt with that all week long. So with that, I do want to thank both of my deputies. It's not always the best being the face of local government, and the town clerk's office is, and my staff really, they put up with a lot last week, and I really appreciate them. They were both very calm and cool and collected when some people were not. And I just want to say that I was absolutely blown away by Courtney Coffey with how well she was able to explain the processes to residents from working in the building department and having a good understanding of the zoning, which I will admit I don't know and I don't want to know. I know enough. I don't need to know that stuff. And I don't want to give anyone false information, but Courtney was phenomenal and I want that recognized.
Yep.
So hopefully next week will be a better week for our department.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, because they were able to send phone calls and things to me when they weren't able to answer, but having them answering the face questions was very helpful. So thank you for that. The highway superintendent report. Our highway superintendent would just like to remind people that winter plowing season is upon us, and so please, when you're plowing your driveways, do not plow the snow back out into the roads. The problem is when you do that, those little edges freeze and create essentially ice speed bumps for the motorists or for the residents on the public roads. So please do not plow your snow out onto the roadways. Also, regarding mailboxes, we do our best to avoid mailboxes, either from, and it's not always from the plow itself, very often it's from the force of the snow being plowed against the mailbox. New York State highway law allows mailboxes to be where they are because they have to be for the Postal Service, and the town continues to do our best. But in storms, it sometimes happens that they get knocked over, and we will do our best to work with people to avoid that and to correct the problems when they happen. But just reminding people that in winter season, our main responsibility and legal responsibility is to keep the roads safe and maintained. And out of that comes some unintended consequences at times. So, department updates. I'm going to start with Erin, and I'd like her to first give an update on the board and commissions meeting, and then your other ones.
Okay, great. That's great. So on Sunday, I guess, the first boards and commissions open house, I think that we've had. Yeah. And it was very well attended. We had at least 25 attendees. I think there was probably 30. I had 25 people sign up on the sign-in sheet. And we started with a presentation by Eleanor Peck of Hudson Valley Regional Council on climate smart communities and what committees can do and how the program works and the support and grant opportunities that are available through that program. Then I did a short presentation on the climate smart program specific to the town of Rochester, using that gap analysis that was done by the BARD students as the basis of that framework. And then I had a quick overview of all the vacancies that are that we have going into 2024. And then we had for 2 hours, well, really it was like an hour and 15 minutes. After that, we had tabling, and it was great. I also recorded the presentation, and I checked the sound on it, and the sound was very good. Turns out I talk really loud, and so does Eleanor. So it's like the sound is really good. So those PowerPoints and the audio is on our YouTube page. I created a Google form so that people could sign up on the spot, and I followed the questions that we have in our boards and commissions application that's on the website. We received 2 applications, and then I have talked to like 20 people that are excited to, so I'm gonna follow up to everyone that signed up on the list with the paper application, the Google form link, anyone who prefers that method, and the link to the presentation. But there's a lot of interest, and I am excited that that seemed to be what people wanted, to really hear more about what they do. So with that, I want to thank we had representatives from almost all the boards and commissions that have vacancies here with tables and members, and that they all thought it was great too, because we got to recognize the work they're doing and talk to people that want to do similar work. It was like speed dating. People were like matching with, someone came up to me, was like, I didn't think this, but now I want to join the HPC. And so that was great.
That is great.
That was what I wanted. So going into my liaison updates, just quickly, for the courthouse, I'm thinking about the annual review. I've heard feedback from both justices that they'd like an overview a little sooner in the process. So I was thinking about sending them that now. And then when we have the new board seated, there'll be, one different member will be choosing who's doing that. I'm imagining I'll do it since I've done it. And it's kind of
We can do that as part of our organizational
nice.
meeting.
It's nice to have someone who's done it before.
Yep.
Do it. I don't have to keep doing it forever, but I was imagining that. So I wanted to just let the board know that I will be initiating that outreach. The ECC is currently working on a mission statement. They also are planning their events out for 2024. They also had a volunteer that is crafting a special logo for the Rochester ECC that they're working on right now, which is exciting. Some news from the ECC. December was the last plastic bag recycling event at the transfer station for the winter. So because of the winter season, they didn't want to have to deal with storing plastic, but they will resume in the spring. And for anyone that really likes the bag recycling, there are drop-off points at grocery stores in the region. But particularly they had been using the Hannaford in Kingston is the one that has been taking the trucks sorted.
Same bag in my car. It's gonna stay in my car until spring.
Or
April,
you could,
or you can drive it to Kingston.
like
Drop it.
one of the times when
But
so that is that.
I went to.
And then the Agricultural Advisory Committee, I'm working on scheduling the initial meeting. As you guys remember, we made those appointments in July, and then we did outreach and hear back about scheduling. And so I've spoken to a few members, and I'm working on getting everyone's calendars together so that we can get that meeting on the calendar for sometime in the next several weeks. I'm guessing it won't be until January, which is fine. And so there's that update. The transfer station, I think we announced this already because we did it through resolution, but just they are requiring that the permit be present for people to use the transfer station. And I know that's sort of making the staff there and us think about ways that we could improve the systems. And we are we'll be working with Kate this month to work on refining some systems, and there might be some things that come out of that we need in order to make sure that everything is in order and, the way it needs to be, and easy for the staff as simple as possible for the staff to fulfill what they need to do. And then the website, I'm working on it. Still working on it. It's almost there. And I did get outreach from our new sales manager point person who is ready to do our staff trainings whenever our draft is done. So I'll be trying to coordinate that with who we think the appropriate staff is for that. I think that I might have some other liaison ships, but I don't know.
I think you got them all.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
planning board.
Oh, the planning board. Oh my goodness. Okay, I didn't write that one out, but they did have I was very impressed with their agenda. In their regular meeting this month was very full, and they were out of there in like 2 hours. It was very impressive. They're making decisions. They had public hearings, and then one application the planning board was ready to make the decision, but the applicant asked if they could wait until this month. So, that's,
We actually read about it in the Shawangunk.
oh, you did, okay.
Because the neighbor asked the applicant to make a change in the
Yes.
roadway, and
And-
they agreed.
And the planning board
But-
decided they didn't need to,
Yeah,
and that
But the
now
applicant said, we want to anyway, so the map
to
had
be
to be
neighborly,
redrawn.
yeah, so they wanna be neighborly, so that's good,
It was a headline into the, pointing at the
Yeah,
house.
and that's the agricultural parcel on Airport, the corner of Airport and 209. So that, should be, and then they had a meeting, last night, which I was unable to attend because of work. But I believe they were making their comments
And
on our
they actually
code
sent them.
updates. Okay,
I
great.
will be sharing them.
And then I think they also had one application, DeJager was on the agenda last night, but I have not had a chance to watch that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Charlotte, we'll go across the table instead of round the table. Yeah, gotta keep you guys on your toes.
All right, so the elder care program, has been all as well as what Rich reported. They had a couple of folks call to have people have their relatives checked on around Thanksgiving, and during the brief snowfall we had. But everything's running smoothly there. And the housing committee, I was not at the meeting, but their minutes and their notes, they worked on drafting the letter that they read at the public hearing to us. And they're also working on, while we're waiting for the consultant from the county, to be awarded the bid and start the project of doing a housing site inventory on the town. They're going through and looking at other towns' short-term rental laws and taking a look at our zoning code and seeing if they have any recommendations for us for the changes we're proposing.
Good.
And their meeting this month will be on Zoom strictly for the housing thing.
Charlotte, on that assessment, is it just for affordable housing or is it housing?
It's any potential housing site.
Like, single to everything? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Like,
So-
it's
Great, someone was asking me about it.
like 5-figure cost of a consultation and review of our town, so.
Nice.
They'll be doing to the point where they'll report what ones can take on a larger infrastructure project, what have water and septic possibilities for a large, like apartment housing or something like that. So it'll be a really detailed, nice report when it's done, but just in a week.
And then they'll actually do threefold. They'll do an analysis and identify properties that they think fit the needs for housing and have the infrastructure. Or then the second part is they will help us connect with potential developers that could then talk to the property owners and they will make the connection. And then the third part is they will even create sample designs of the structures. So it's a win-win-win. And then the county is funding this 100%. And like she said, it's a 5-figure funded grant. So they just were holding off until we actually got our zoning code in place because it doesn't make sense for them to start until we, if things are changing. So we're gonna just wait, hold off. And the county still hasn't gotten the contract signed. So. Michael, okay,
We're gonna zigzag.
we'll go to Adam. We'll go to Adam. No, we'll go to Adam.
I'll be quick. There you go. So from the Ashley Rec Department, this Friday, December 8th is the youth holiday party at the community center from 5:30 to 7:30. Santa and Mrs. Claus will be in attendance. Call the rec department to sign up. Friday, December 15th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. will be the senior holiday breakfast. Call the rec department to sign up. I'd like to thank the basketball sponsors this year from KVA. Again, includes A&M Hardware, 316 Landscaping, Bear Furniture, Bell's Christmas Tree Farm, Bob Gatos Auto Body, Brush Construction, Chad Miller CPA, David Lawrence Construction, G3 Home Improvements LLC, Humiston Funeral Home, Jennifer's Pet Sitting, Kelder's Farm, Honks Diner, Key Taxes, M&B and Sons Construction, Filber Research Associates, Pride of the Hudson, Reading Dental, Ryan's NYPD, Saunderskill Farm, Sprague and Colleen, Suburban Propane, Tedda's, and TJ's Excavating. Thank you to all the sponsors this year.
Nice.
And then our constabulary report. The constabulary answered 17 direct calls for service and other duties in November, which included 10 neighbor-to-neighbor and quality of life complaints, 4 resident traffic complaints, Clay Hill Road, Sampsonville Road, Medicohonks Road, and Lower Whitfield. 3 environmental complaints, municipal lot, highway, Queens Highway, Lower Whitfield Road. 3 new building department violations. 0 court cases were opened. 10 court proceedings remain open, and 0 court proceedings closed. Interesting occurrences during the month. During the month, the constabulary had more traffic complaints than usual. Several involved ATVs and electric motorcycle style machines operating on public roads. As a reminder, this is dangerous to both the operators and the motorists and is unlawful. Dumping of household trash and other debris on roads remains an ongoing issue. Short-term rental properties continue to generate complaints, mainly on holidays, Fridays, and weekends. Neighbor-to-neighbor complaints have decreased again this month, with trespassing type complaints being the most common. All have been diffused without further action necessary. They continue to monitor the areas in which the most complaints frequently occur. That comes from Rich Miller.
Was that your last?
That was the last one.
It's all you.
The last one forever.
The last one forever. My
Yeah.
last.
Wow.
I thought about that as he was going, but that's
Okay.
doing so well.
I'm okay with that.
Exactly. I come to again with that.
All right, so ZBA, hopefully people remember we authorized Code Enforcement Office to attend their meeting to help clarify a complex case. They attended, things are clarified, and I spoke with Chair Zarowski, and very appreciative of the professionalism of folks that came to clarify things. It's still complex, but now they know what's what. So they were very appreciative of the opportunity and are now moving forward with. In terms of EMS, I spoke with Dave Boland from the Ambulance Advisory Committee. Was glad to see that we're looking through the contracts. I know it's on the agenda today. Had a few ideas about what we could possibly change in terms of reporting and making sure that we can provide better guidance in terms of what we would like to see in terms of reporting from them. So we can discuss that later in the meeting. Not exclusively related to the fire district, but I spoke with Peter Nelson over the weekend, and it jogged my memory. One thing I'd like us to look at, and I don't know if this is done through some kind of local ordinance, but the high visibility house numbers and street numbers and making it easier for emergency responders to find locations. And I was thinking about it as I drove down the road today, and it was really hard to tell what address you were from. And I know that's something that they've asked about. So I don't know if we could look at phasing in as a requirement that new homes that people need to start. Because it's really obvious when you have those like bright high visibility numbers.
Yeah. Yep.
So that might be something we look at next year to see if we can do something there. And then
Roads are on the road.
they're
not on houses.
On mailboxes.
No, they're out usually on either on mailbox posts or near, or they're on a ground mount
Yeah,
post. So they're
okay, that's
near
what I was
the
thinking.
Even if a few
And they
people
are
do it,
reflective.
if a few people do it, it's like really obvious where you are.
They're
Especially-
voluntary right now, and a number of people can get them. You can or actually order them through KFAS. And they provide them.
Okay, I wasn't aware. So.
Yeah.
Spectrum. Oof. So they gave us a new number. It was 98,000 to close the 3 remaining large runs for gaps in town. That was, I think it would cover 15 homes. 10 of the homes are within their serviceable area where they would automatically be connected. The remaining 5, there would be some additional cost. They estimated what that additional cost was. I wrote back and said, so you're saying this is the cost, this is the estimate, so the total is this, and all I did was add them together. And I was, well, it's not that simple. So I spoke with them yesterday. I called up and spoke with them. So they still, that first number to do the roadways does not include a contribution.
Right,
Again,
but
they're
that's to
asking,
take it to the utility pole?
that's to take it to the utility pole and they would connect the homes that are within the 200-foot.
Within the 200 foot from
So, so get us 10 of the homes. Of the remaining homes, I don't know that they're all gonna want connections, but we can discuss that. So it doesn't include their contribution to it. So I asked them again, I said, just tell me what's the bottom line number with your contribution. It got back to how's it being funded? And there may be some incentive on their side if there's federal dollars. So, and I know we're looking at the ARPA funds today. Do we have to do something with that before the end of the year?
We have to have it assigned.
So the short answer is, and we can talk about it when we get there, we have to have a contract signed. We have to have it committed by the end of 2024.
24.
But once it's moved into our general fund, we can fund any of this with it.
And it's still considered
Yes,
federal?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so all we're doing is we're now with this resolution, and I was gonna explain this when we get to it, but we'll be appropriating all the money by the end of 2023. So we're done reporting, but the money's still there. And it's available we can use it for whatever we want it.
Right, so my recommendation was come back with your number. I'll take it to the board, we can discuss it. And then,
Because we also have the 105,000 in the capital fund that was set aside specifically for cable/broadband.
right, so I don't know if it's federal dollars versus other dollars, but send me the number, let's figure out what the total cost is. And then the other thing I wanted to make sure is I don't wanna do piecemeal, we'll do this road and this, I want it to be one project, we'll fund it, starts, he did say for most of these, you can get them done within a year. They have to get the permission to be on the ride on the poles.
Did you remind them that it was very well publicized that they did one in Red Hook that was a more remote area?
I brought that
They
up.
paid for it.
There was an
directly?
explanation, had something to do
Yeah.
with revenue and.
Okay.
and projects worth it, and I know he's aware of what Ulster County's doing, he talks to Mark Gallagher, so
Okay,
we'll see, it's progress. But
okay,
I'll get the number and then hopefully we can discuss it.
yep, okay, thank you. And thank you for all your work on it. I know it's become a lifelong project.
Still enjoy it.
Any other reports or is that it? I think that's everything,
That's it.
right? Okay. The assessor, as Mary Lou said, our assessor has provided a copy of what Marbletown and I guess Rosendale were providing for these changes in the senior and people with disabilities exemptions. It has something to do with how IRAs are included in income or revenue from IRAs or something along those lines. And I fully admit I'm not as up to speed on it as I'd like to be. And but we'll let Mary Lou draft law for us. I'll present it to you guys and then we'll set a public hearing. We want to do it sooner rather than later because exemptions are due March 1st. So we want to try to get this done as early in January as we can. So people have time to comprehend what it all means, and our assessor then has a good 6 weeks to get exemptions in to get processed in time for March 1st. So, couple quick things on the boards and commissions. Just I sent out a letter to all the people, and thank you, Kate, for her staff's assistance in getting that letter out. There were 16 letters that went out to people who are on boards and commissions that their term is expiring at the end of the year. Or in one case, it expired in September, which is the Board of Assessment Review. However, that person already indicated to me they do not want to be reseated. So for the board, and I have copies for each of you, if you want to just have these available in terms of if people ask you. This is what is available as of the end of this month. There are 6 openings in the ECC, but two of those 6 are being considered for reappointment. There are 12 openings in the HPC, except 1, 2, 8 of those 12 are being considered for reappointment. And they've been very proactive. I've already heard from, I think, 5 of those 8, and maybe 6, that they want to be reappointed. We have 1 vacancy in the Recreation Commission. We have 2 openings on the Planning Board. 1 was a resignation that took effect as of the end of November, excuse me. And 1 whose term is up at the end of December. I don't know if that person is interested in coming back or not. On the ZBA, we have 1 vacancy coming due, and our alternate's term remains vacant. I do know that that person indicated they want to be reappointed, and I haven't gotten a letter yet. On our Board of Ethics, we have a vacancy. We have an alternate vacancy, and we have a position that the person whose term is ending is term limited, because under the law, they can only serve for 2 full terms. They have, which has been 10 years on the Ethics Board. And we thank Britt Baker for his service on the Ethics Board, but we're precluded from reappointing him. So we have 2 full vacancies and an alternate vacancy. We have a vacancy on the Board of Assessment Review, and that is the person who does not wish to be reappointed. And on the Ambulance District Budget Advisory Committees, we have a vacancy, and then we have 2 positions that are coming open. They were 1-year terms. And remember, because we have 2 different advisory committees, one of those was the same person was in both seats. And then on the other, it was 2 different people because of who they represented. So anyway, all the people who have whose terms are ending received a copy of the letter that is stapled to the back on that. I don't think if there's any other updates. We do have a vacancy employment position in the transfer station. I have not had a chance to put out an Indeed ad for that. I will get one out this week, and hopefully we will fill that in the near future. We have our current 2 staff members will be staffing it until such time as we hire a 3rd. And I think that's all I have. So moving on, we're going to open the public comment portion of the meeting. This is the ability for the public to speak to the board. It's not a question and answer session. I'm guessing that some of the comments continuation from the public hearing the other night, and you are certainly welcome to speak whatever you wish to speak. Just know that comments made here are not a part of the public hearing record. Our attorney, and maybe she can explain it better than I can, but she just asked me to remind people tonight that speaking here, you're speaking to the board at public comment. It's not a part of the public hearing record for the zoning and subdivision laws. So
Yeah, so just be sure that if you want your comments to be part of the record, that you either get those comments to the town clerk in writing and ask that they be part of the record, or that you come to the continuation of public hearing once that's scheduled and speak at that time, because we want your comments to be part of the record. That's the only way to make sure they are. Thanks.
Part of the record for the public
for the
hearings.
public hearings,
Right,
Anyone who speaks tonight, their
it's part of
comments
this
are part
meeting's
of the
record, but
meeting.
it's not.
right.
And to follow up on that, as we committed to last Thursday night, and it's on our agenda tonight, is for us to find 2 dates where we can have a public open house that is the ability to have a question and answer session. It will have to be a meeting in order for all the board members to be here. Anytime more than 3 of us are doing town business, it must be a public meeting. However, it will not be a public hearing. It will be the opportunity to kind of be an open house forum where people can come have one-on-one conversations, 1-on-2, 1-on-3, whatever, however it evolves, but to actually have a real dialogue, as opposed to the public hearing process, which is a much more formalized process where the board is hearing people and not really able to respond. I will say, I want to say thank you to everybody for, last Thursday was a 4-hour public hearing session for 3 public hearings, but everybody was very respectful. We appreciate that. People are passionate and I understand that and I appreciate that, but everyone who spoke was respectful. They were respectful of each other. And I want to say thank you to everybody for that process and how everyone, it was, I have seen public hearings and public meetings that have been much, much worse. And I think everybody should be complimented and applauded for how they conducted themselves Thursday night. So just want to make a strong point of saying that. So with that, I'm going to open up the public comment session. If anyone would like to speak tonight, you're welcome to. If you don't, there's no obligation to. We are going to have some conversation about the zoning tonight, but it's mostly to try to figure out when those meetings are. We're not really going to have a lot of conversation tonight about the actual topic of the laws until we get that feedback from some of those other meetings. So with that, does anyone wish to speak? Jerry, please.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments of, I recall many years ago, a meeting that took place and it was very sad to see right over here at the firehouse. That meeting that was a very previous administration in which 2 uniformed New York State police officers were at that meeting. And I, of course, went over and asked them why it was necessary to have a police presence, especially in uniform, at a public hearing meeting over a very similar situation, what we find ourselves in right now. And kind of helped to persuade them that I, in fact, assured them that there would be no need for anybody of a law enforcement purpose at that meeting. And glad to see that it was not purposeful. And I'd like to say that I hope that that stays the case in our town. But having said that, and I think after what you just said, the best thing to do would be to put some of the comments that in fact I have at home in writing, to officially get them to Kate or to the office so that there is a document of that. And I know that including friend Jeremy and the local lady here as well might want to do that same thing. There are a couple comments though that I wanted to just add the other day, and because I wanted to make sure other people got their comments in, and it was a really long meeting, as you all noticed. Having recalled my wife coming home of 5 years on the board, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night is really tough. And I think everybody, even though I'm retired, I still have work to do, my chickens and other things. So it is a long night, and I appreciate all of you being here and as well being respectful of us. But having said that, I know that some of these things that are taking place, in particular, this PL 10 designation from the R5. And I was very passionate when I was on the board with you, Mike, with the committee, I should say, for the zoning, in which we progressed from a 1 acre to a 5 acre. And now hearing that being doubled it's quite a bit to swallow. And being an owner of one of those parcels, it's very difficult just to speak right now. Forgive me, I just literally came from my 3rd funeral service just tonight. Cindy's grandfather passed away a few days ago. And she could not come because she and her sister were just plain spent, as is my daughter, who sang very well at that event today. But having 3 of them inside of 30 days is it's just beat the crap out of me too. With my own sister having passed at the beginning of last month. But having said that, I really would appreciate that all of you consider what it is that you're doing when we change certain things, because there's that old saying of you can't move something without, if you will, displace something else. And that, I guess, is the greatest point that I'd like to get through here is tonight, that there are going to be repercussions of some of these things occurring. And I appreciate that when Mike, you had said the state got most of these letters in regards to the PL10, correct me if I'm wrong. And the state, and I can tell you, having been a 32+ year employee of the federal government, could give a crap about letters that would come to us, and being a recipient of some of those while being an agent of the federal government, I took it really personal about people trying to get things done and finding out how difficult it is dealing with the federal government. And so I already know what the state's attitude is. Town of Rochester, do whatever you want to do. But we're really not going to be affected by any of it, because all of it is our protected land, if you will. And I would just like to close in my comments, and I would not have taken as long, but I don't see anybody else with a hand up, that there are other ways that people, and having right now a tenant who works for the state, and in fact, he specializes in covering different tax advantages when you put your land in conservatory, forest conservative. I apologize, he was at a call, and I was not going to drag that kid out of debt. But I'd like him to actually get to speak about, there are ways that people can, if you care, put your property in something like that. You can absolutely do that. And it's a voluntary process. You get different tax incentives for doing it. And I think that's grand. I myself protect my land. I am very protective of how I believe I'm a very good steward of my land. And I think some of what is going to take place with this going from the R5 to PL10, as well as some of the others, and I took heed to the property which we're now going to, or we've already taken from commercial to residential. I could tell by some of the responses of you folks there that, whoa, some of these people didn't even know that it happened. They were quite upset, and I give them a lot of credit for being very calm about that and explaining it. But these are some of the things, and again, having sat on that board, I look back now and I go, I would never do it again, but I wouldn't trade anything for having done it that time and trying our best. Michael, you brought up something about the beginning of that, I believe, signage. Correct me if I'm wrong. You condensed it. We spent, I believe, 4 meetings, if I can recall, on just signage. And guess what? As you well know, it still went over like 20 pounds of lead in a 10-pound bag. It fell right through, and those persons who took offense in telling them how to produce, clientele for their commercial businesses and all, it was horrible. We spent days in which we thought we'd do 4 hours. Good luck. Good luck with that. So I just say, please, all of you, I beg you, be considerate of those of us who are saying we don't need anybody else to come in. and tell me what I'm doing with my property when I think I'm doing really well at, and again, protecting it, keeping it. I have no interest in breaking the whole thing up and things like that. But there are different things that happen in families, and I just experienced that a few hours ago, in which two members of my wife's family just lost the death of the grandfather, lost the home. And one of those individuals is severely handicapped. And I don't know how this is gonna work out, but this is what happens when people think they're doing the right thing, help them, in this case financially, years ago. And now, on this person's death, there were two people who are basically homeless as we speak. And I am trying to do what I can do, because our family is my family. But I just ask you all to keep that in mind. That you don't know what can happen in the future that can then, what you've done here with this rearranging, if you will, of the cards that were on the table and are now turning around, how it can affect families and put people in really bad financial straits. I know we heard from a number of people the other day about that. So, but I thank you for listening, and I will put some of what I've done in writing, and I will again request that if there is an option of leaving what I have the way it is, I'd be thrilled to just leave it that way. Again, thank you all for
Thank
listening.
you. Anyone else wish to speak tonight? Okay,
I do want to say that I actually got a call yesterday from a gentleman that sits on the Ulster County Planning Board and wanted to know where our status was, because the state is interested in making comments. So like you made the comment, that the state's not gonna care. Someone at the state's caring, but
Well-
they do want to make comments.
so Ag and Markets has reached out to us, and they are making comments. You got actually from, it's not someone who sits on it, it's one of the planning department staff.
Okay.
And this came about as part of any local law that deals with land use. It must be submitted to the Ulster County Planning Board for comments. The zoning law and the subdivision law were already submitted to them, and they've offered their comments. The map is on their agenda for tomorrow night, at their meeting tomorrow night. They will be reviewing it and offering back comments. And one of the comments was there was a concern about how from State Ag and Markets about how some of these changes might impact agricultural uses in our town. And we did try to consider those very, very much. And perhaps we may have caused some unintended consequences. So I just want to add that we are very interested in hearing any feedback on this. I know many people may think that this was a done deal. This was step one of this process. And Jerry, I appreciate your words because you've lived it. And
Boy, did I have.
you were one of the people sitting in there in the room when everybody, not everybody, but a number of people were telling us that everything we did was wrong. And another part of the room was telling us everything we did was right. So there you go. You can never keep everybody happy, but we want to hear comments. We welcome. And the only reason I started this by saying what I did earlier is we want those comments to be in on the record. They can be emails, they can be written. You can wait and speak verbally at the next public hearing on that. I just wanted to be sure, certainly the board is hearing everything you say at these meetings, but they don't become part of the official record of the public hearings. And I just wanted to, it's a semantic thing, but it's just important to make sure people understand. So with that, does anybody on the board care to say anything tonight? If not, we'll move on to the next agenda. Yes. Yeah, and Jerry, if you wouldn't mind sharing the name, and we'll put them in our memorial that we do every night. Do you mind telling me the name? Or would you?
Rich or Pop, as he went by, See, do not put this down. Richard Morgan is the grandfather, but as my daughter so well sung today for him, Papa Smurf was
It's quite all right.
and we can keep that in the room here, but you know what? And again, it was the third one. And it's just been tough. And I could tell you, I've been dealing with a lot of friends. I've been dealing with the agency I work for. You all know where I came from and the work that I did, 9/11. Then thereafter, we're losing a lot of people due to a single horrible condition, cancer. And my dear friend, and I was his best man at his wedding, known each other 50 years. And he's fighting two cancers from 9/11. He's detected. He just lost, on top of all that's happening to him, just Thanksgiving evening, he lost his 36-year-old daughter-in-law to breast cancer. And where did she work? Sloan Kettering. And she promised that she would, and she tried to do everything she could to help him with the two cancers. And lo and behold, 6 months ago, she was diagnosed, and that's how quick it took her, 6 months. It's just, it's been a really tough blow. And I'll just leave it at this, that when you hear things about there being financial support, I'll keep it real short, for those of us that were first responders on 9/11, well, tell that to the people who I just received my third $1,000 bill. And I have, and I'm registered with the 9/11 Health for the Heroes program and everything. And that's funny because they can't seem to get the money out of them. So now they think they're gonna get it to me. And I go, excuse me, I got 5 insurances already, including 2 of them under the whole 9/11 program. I'm done with this whole program. So I know we have a number of people in town, and I think now's a great time. I want to thank you personally, Michael, for what, when you come, and this is not to any of you individually, it's to everybody who sits on that board. My wife, of course, her husband, she's lived through it. She comes to the 9/11 candlelight. The people need to understand these first responders, our first responders in our town, ambulatory and fire department, and here I guess I'm a little bit officially in that capacity. And yes, by the way, I'll do it for as long as I'm able to do it, being the emergency management director. But any day, any time, any fire, any emergency call, any car, any truck that they take out, they may not come home, or they may come home in a wheelchair. And I think it's imperative that this town and every town appreciate these people that go out, as we all appreciated everybody that helped us in the following of what took place 9/11. Because with no way I can tell you, having been there 13 months working out in Staten Island, there was no way we could have done what we did without the tremendous public support of the volunteers that didn't just come on the night of 9/11, dug for people, but the people who came and helped us. Many of those were volunteer fire companies. We could not have done the job we did without volunteers. You can't have a town like this town without volunteers. And I appreciate you, Mike, because you came right back from the trip you were on. You came the night of 9/11. It was a rainy night. We couldn't do candles that night. So I brought some flags. And I hope other people who are board members and other people in town can come down for this really nice ceremony. I put up a flag and actually hung over the Trade Center, and it signified the 10th anniversary of the first attack on the World Trade Center, February 26, 1993. It's the 10th anniversary of that. I appreciate the thoughts.
Thank you.
And the thoughts for Cindy's family, I will tell her, send your regards to her. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving into resolutions. Town of Rochester Town Board accepts the minutes of the November 2nd business meeting, the November 4th workshop meeting, and the November 9th workshop meeting. We're gonna stop there because the 20th is still being worked on, so they will be tabled. So November 9th as presented.
I'll make them.
Okay. I had a motion and a second. Any discussion or corrections? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. And Kate, I want to thank you in particular. I know the 30th meeting, the public hearings, there's a lot to do, and thank you for all the work you do on the minutes. Acceptance of a donation. Town of Rochester Town Board accepts a generous donation of snacks and drinks from Jack Arnold for the after-school program. Jack is a local college student who's committed to making a difference in his hometown, and the town is very appreciative of this young person's support. He did this on his own. He was taking a class about, I don't know what the class was, but somehow it spurred making a difference in community, and he came up with this idea and presented it to him completely on his own. So I ask for a motion to accept that donation. A second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Next, we have some generous donations for Thanksgiving. Town of Rochester Town Board accepts the donation of 6 turkeys from Gary Palmer, and the donation of a reduction in pricing of the turkeys equal to $150 from Jeffrey Lipton, the Bowery Dugout for the Thanksgiving one. Second. Of course, Mr. Palmer is the owner of the Ackworth Speedway, and every year he donates turkeys. Jeffrey Lipton is the nephew of Harold Lipton, who this community center is named after. And the Bowery Dugout was owned by Harold at one time. Jeffrey is now the owner, and every year we order our turkeys through him. The price jumped up considerably this year, and he always gives us a discount. But this year, he gave us them for half price, and he paid the balance out of his pocket. So we thank both of them for their donations. So all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Next is acceptance of donations. Town of Rochester Town Board accepts donations in the amount of $100 from Nancy Smith for the holiday party, $50 from Elaine and Mel Tapper, and $209 in cash donations collected at the Thanksgiving luncheon.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Next, we need to schedule our organizational meeting. So I'm going to present this, and then let's just have a quick discussion. So Town of Rochester Town Board sets the 2024 organizational meeting for the Town of Rochester to be held January 2nd. Should be 2024. I'm not going backwards. Apologies. At 6:30 p.m. at the Harold Lipton Community Center. Request the town clerk post legal notice. Have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So our regular meeting is 2 days after. In past supervisors, they were combined into one meeting. It does make for a very, very, very long meeting with a lot of resolutions. We could combine them into one. We could hold both of them on the January 2nd. We could hold both on the January 4th, or we could do one on the 2nd and the one on the 4th. I put it in as a placeholder because we hadn't had this discussion before. In past years, because of the dates, we had to do an organizational meeting because of paychecks and things. This will work if we did them at the same night. So what's the board's feeling?
First.
I mean, I'd be fine with a long meeting.
I would be fine with a long meeting if it was Thursday. Tuesdays are really hard for me, and
Okay.
I probably pay most of my stipend babysitting for a month if they're on Tuesday.
I'll do whatever. I can do the Tuesday, or I can do.
So do we want to do them both on the 4th then, if Tuesdays don't work well for you? Charlotte? And
Yeah,
then
if we're
just-
gonna do two, like if we're splitting them and have to do Tuesday, I'll make it work, but
Okay.
I would prefer not a Tuesday.
Well, if Michael doesn't mind, and if you don't care, Aaron, I certainly don't mind doing it on January 4th. So the way we would do it is we would do the organizational meeting, probably take because remember that's
Yeah.
20 pages of resolutions. And then we would probably take a short break and then roll into the regular meeting, which is usually a very short meeting because the organizational meeting has handled a lot of it. So,
So do
is that?
we don't need to,
Well, we should advertise the organizational meeting. So if we are gonna do it on the 4th, what we'll do is we'll amend the resolution to say to be held January 4th at 6:30 PM. One question that's put out, do we want to start at 6 PM with the organizational, or do we want to just leave it at 6:30 and
I'm
one
fine
into the
with
six?
six. Yes, but up to you guys.
Michael, 6,
Yeah, I can probably.
okay.
Mike,
So,
you might want to add immediately followed by the town
Yeah,
board meeting
yeah.
because you probably haven't scheduled that yet.
correct, and that was gonna be my next thing once we set this, so. So the new resolution will read, the Town of Rochester Town Board sets the 2024 organizational meeting for the Town of Rochester to be held January 4th, 2024 at 6 PM at the Harold Lipton Community Center, to be immediately followed by the January 2024 business meeting, regular business meeting, and request the town clerk post legal notice. So,
Make that
make that
motion.
motion?
as amended.
Okay. Have a second on that amendment?
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
You're gonna abstain?
I just got nothing.
It's a vote.
Do an hour.
There you go.
Okay, next, the Town of Rochester Town Board authorizes the town supervisor to appropriate the remaining balance of the American Rescue Plan ARPA funds, and I do have a breakdown here of that. Funding in the amount of $132,678.91 to be deposited as revenue into general fund AA 4089 federal aid other. And let me just give you that quick breakdown of.
Did you just make that motion, Mike, or?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
I'll
I'm sorry,
second
I'm
it
just
so we
trying to
can do
find the,
discussion.
yeah. So, okay, go ahead and discuss while I find the paperwork that has I know I printed it out.
yeah,
This was apparently one of it.
yes. I think the thing that Councilman Coleman brought up is if Spectrum if there is some way in which they can do some sort of bonus if they are using federal funds, would these still be considered federal funds if we move them into the general fund and
Yes.
then use them?
Yes. I believe so. Mary Lou, can you add to that? Because, so we would be appropriating these as lost revenue. And I know, here it is, sorry.
That's more an accounting question or a controller question. I
Okay.
can't.
At that point, we can
Answer
use
that,
them for any
which-
item we want to. So,
Right, but I don't know if they would still would they still count as?
You're putting it in a
federal funds?
federal aid line.
putting it in a federal aid line,
Oh,
and it's in that federal aid other as revenue. And there's no expenditure currently against it.
Okay.
And quite frankly, though, I've read the ARPA legislation really thoroughly, and I'm not sure what they're trying to
Well,
allude to.
I don't know either. I do know that there were other incentives offered to broadband service providers
Correct.
during the pandemic and with ARPA, so maybe they get some sort of incentive for that. I don't know. Like, I'm just,
Yeah,
this is all if,
right.
I'm not saying that I believe them, but working with federal grants, I do know that sometimes there can be some different perks to.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that anywhere, and we do have to have a signed contract by the end of 2024
Yeah.
for whatever this funding. And because this was the balance that was left over after those payments that we have approved and expended. So it's been reported, we report back to the federal government every April. So the last report was April 2023. And so I can't remember if the 175 was that. No, that'll be in this report as well for the park bathrooms. So but the money remains. It's not budgeted for any specific item. And we do have the 105,000 already appropriated for broadband. It is not ARPA funding. It actually was cable franchise funds that were set aside, 35,000 over 3 years by a previous board. And that money, unless we reappropriate it for something else, which involves a legal process, because it was specifically done by resolution for broadband, it would make more sense to spend that money, because that must be spent on broadband, unless we go through the process of and Mary Lou can correct me. I think if you want to change the purpose, doesn't it have to go to permissive referendum of a capital fund appropriation?
It may have to. I can look that up for you.
Yeah, I believe it does if you change the stated purpose. It has a possibility. We have to adopt a resolution and then wait for the possibility of the citizens calling for a referendum. And then if they do, and it's judged that then it must go to a vote in the next election.
And then, I'm sorry, Mike, what's the benefit to doing this now?
I'm just trying to close out, to be honest. Carrying this over past December 31st just doesn't make any sense to me. We don't have it earmarked for anything. I'm just trying to, it's on our balance sheet as it's there. It's in the same bank account as our general fund, but it's not part of our general fund yet. It's money that was appropriated. So it's really a bookkeeping thing. It's just trying to close out.
Is it encumbered?
It is. No, it's not encumbered. It's not. It was received and it's in there, but there's no expenditure against it right now. So it's not encumbered. But it is listed. When we received this, we got half in one payment and half in the other. And that was in 2021 and 2022. We got those payments. So we've just been carrying over. And as we have approved expenditures out of that, it then goes into, with ARPA, you don't appropriate the money until you actually spend it. But you can appropriate it as lost revenue, which is my proposal for this. We certainly have paid an awful lot of wages to employees who were out with COVID. We were tracking very diligently. We have not been tracking quite as diligently as we were, but we still continue to not make employees under the state policy use paid time off for sick time up to 10 days if they are experiencing COVID related illness. So,
Mike,
So, go ahead.
you're just trying to close this.
I'm just trying to
over by
close-
the end of the year.
close the
correct?
budget line by the end of the year.
So.
And I was just doing it at a regular
Um,
meeting rather than a workshop or
Can I maybe suggest that we possibly table this, so we can see if we hear back from Spectrum about the
Absolutely.
federal thing first till next
Yep.
meeting, so we have some time.
Yep.
And so that if it does have to be,
and I'm
I
fine
don't
with
see why
that.
it would have to be in this account, if we're putting it on a federal aid line, but just in case, like, say the 105 would cover us running it, and it's only a small cost to run it to those 5 other houses directly to them,
Mhm.
and we wanna take it out of the ARPA money, I
Fair
think
enough.
I would be in favor of that, but you go ahead with what you were gonna say, Michael.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is that there's an interest in taking care of this federal funding, and it's in Spectrum's best interest to get back to us with a contract and their best offer as soon as possible.
Agreed.
Before the end
Because
of the year.
the board is inclined to take these funds and put them in the general fund, so.
I like when you use your authoritative voice.
Yeah.
So, get back to us.
And
ASAP.
bear in mind, like I said, there is $105,000 that is earmarked for cable and broadband, and I would prefer that we spend that first.
But they
They're
need to
not
get back,
federal.
they need to
Yeah.
move this.
And, well, we also need to know, they need to tell us why the ARPA money has been so important to them. And because the ARPA money can be used for other items, whereas the 105,000 in the capital projects fund that is specifically earmarked for broadband, I'm happy to spend that on broadband. That's what it was there for. That's what it was set aside for. And that's why I've been a little frustrated that they keep telling us how we should spend our money instead of just telling us a price. And that's, we've been going around in circles with them for well over a year now.
We can ask, okay, what's the price if it's not federal, what's the price if it's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would ask for those two. We
I'll
could,
go back.
Find
Tell
out
them
what,
that the reason
find
he's
out
given
what,
transfer
where
federal
the incentive is. I mean, if there's an incentive and there's a cheaper price because of it, then I'm all for it. But I don't understand. And they're just telling us, and quite
Very hard to get
frankly,
it.
agreed, and we have to get it in writing, because eventually we have to have a contract. So,
My emails get returned with a phone call.
got it. Yeah, I know that.
for them. So
Okay, so,
Uh,
let's table this resolution. We'll table this resolution for the moment.
If we could do that.
Yep, Charlotte, we can do this anytime, and we don't have to do it. I was just trying to close out a line, and it was just sort of lingering there.
Yeah, I'm
And,
fine
yeah.
with doing it, but I figure we might as well just wait until if we
Yep.
can get an answer and kind of use it to turn the heat on Spectrum. We can get an
Absolutely.
answer out of them.
I'm gonna move to the other resolutions before we do the racetrack permit. The first is the highway resolution. The highway fund abstract we approved at $104,507.99. The corrected amount is $104,507.87, a 12-cent difference. I'm gonna make that motion if somebody can second it, and then I'll explain why.
I'll second it, it's my fault.
Yeah, no, it's not your fault. So the answer was the voucher that you saw did say whatever the dollar amount was and 12 cents. And then the cover sheet was changed to the whole dollar amount and without 12 cents. What I don't think any of us did, and the fact I had a new assistant who had to run the tape. Jessica, the highway secretary, showed me, and I edited up. The vendor made a mistake. And the 12 cents was the vendor's mistake. If you added up the column, it was the 700 and some dollars. So we all saw the 12 cents and went, oh, she made a mistake when she made the cover sheet. And when I brought that up, she said, oh, no, I didn't. I added it up and they were wrong. And I corrected it. And I said, so next time, please run a tape so we can see that they made a mistake. So
Yeah, Circle Highway.
that's why. So the vendor made a mistake. We took the vendor's word for it, and the highway secretary had corrected it. But we
Almost
didn't.
lost us 12 cents, guys, sorry.
That's okay.
I thought I found us 12 cents.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. We probably talked about it more than 12 seconds. That's okay. Next, we have a new after-school aide. We had a resignation from one of our aides who is going to play a sport and is unable to assist anymore. So I'm going to make a resolution that the board appoint Savannah Freer as an after-school recreation aide at a rate of $15 an hour, effective. What's Sunday's date? This coming Sunday.
And
Effective January 10th, no, December 10th, 2023.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Okay. Ashley wanted to get somebody in there. She has a very detailed schedule. Next, the annual grant that we apply for, that we usually don't apply for until the spring. Ashley heard from the county, and for some reason, they want the paperwork back by the end of this week. And she handed it to me today. So she has filled out the application form already. So I'm gonna I'll make the motion that we authorize the recreation director and the supervisor to apply for the $1,000 funding for the New York State Office of Children and Family Services individual program application for 2024.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Just quick discussion. This is used to be $1,300, gone down to $1,000, but they essentially give that to help fund the salary of our recreation director if we run a summer program. It's a simple matter as you show the cost of your recreation director and they fund you the money. We apply every year and we get it every year. The application process, quite frankly, keeps getting more onerous every time and the money keeps going down. Both Ashley and I are about ready to say, keep your $1,000, but, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you for those resolutions. Next, annually, we have to approve the schedule for the racetrack permit. The permit is filed with the town clerk every year. We approve that the schedule meets the standards of the racetrack law. This is a copy of the application and the proposed schedule. I'm going to read through the resolution. Town of Rochester Town Board authorizes a racing permit renewal to Ackworth Speedway, Inc. pursuant to Town of Rochester Code 107-4C and all other conditions as specified in Town of Rochester Code 107. Such permit is authorized only contingent upon presentation of the following proofs to the town prior to commencement of the 2024 racing schedule. Each year, an Ulster County Health Department permit shall be obtained for all food concessions on the premises as a condition precedent to obtaining a permit from the town to operate said racetrack. The applicant shall provide proof of compliance with Ulster County Health Department regulations as they pertain to lavatories and septic facilities as a condition precedent to obtaining a permit from the town to operate said racetrack. Liability insurance, the permittee shall at all times maintain in full force and effect a public liability insurance policy in amounts not less than $1 million for damages in which one person is killed or injured per occurrence, and not less than $2 million for damages in which more than one person is killed or injured per occurrence. Certificate of insurance naming the town of Rochester as an additional insured must be filed with the town clerk at least 5 days prior to the first date of racetrack usage specified in the permit. Said certificate shall bear the name of the insurance company, the policy number, the term of the policy, the above specified amounts, and the name and address of the permittee's insurance agent. The permit holder shall deposit with the town clerk $1,000 for the town code enforcement officer's use in hiring an independent sound expert to perform sound measurements and issue reports to the town board and the code enforcement officer with respect to the permit holder's compliance with the noise requirements of this chapter. This amount is for one testing, should additional testing be determined to be warranted for such measurements, which may be taken 2 times during the racing season at the sole expense of the permit holder. An additional $1,000 shall be required at such time. Additional measurements above 2 obtained by the town during the racing season shall be at the sole expense of the town. The town board grants the supervisor the authority to review and certify these conditions have been complied with without further resolution. Town further accepts the racing schedule as presented for 40 actual racing dates. We're changing the 5 to 8 potential rain dates. Dates listed as rain dates may be utilized only in the case of replacement of a rained out approved event date. The town board further states upon verification with the code enforcement officer, there are no outstanding notices of violation issued by the town and required sound testing for 2023 occurred. So I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Good down.
The schedule is here. They had originally put a couple Sunday dates on it, and I asked them to remove those because Sunday racing is not allowed. They do have one Sunday that they were hoping to race in October. They may, if they decide to continue with that, be coming to us with a request to add that waiver as we did previously for them. But being that it's October, they're gonna look at this. So otherwise, these are the dates that would be approved for potential racing. And the rain dates are replacements for any of the dates if it rains.
So practice is considered a race day?
Anytime
Okay.
there are vehicles on the track, it is a race event, whether it be an actual race or a practice, correct? So if you count,
That
there
one.
are 40,
Okay. That
yeah,
was
there
a
are
question.
40 days of racing and
Yeah.
there are 8 potential rain dates. The original schedule they gave me only had 5 rain dates, and when they redid the schedule, they added in some more rain
Yeah.
dates. They can have as many rain dates as they want.
But
They can only use a rain date to replace a regular schedule.
The June dates, are those just flipped 21st and 20th? Is it Friday the 20th and Saturday the 21st?
Oh, uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Good catch.
Yep, good catch. That's a typo, but good catch. We will correct that. I did not sit down with a calendar and double check dates, but good catch. So with that correction on the schedule, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions?
And just that on page 5, the applicant signed it, they only printed their name and put their title.
Yeah,
Do they need to, I signed on the
That's-
6th, so I just want.
yeah. So once we approve the schedule, we then notify Kate, which happens because she's sitting right here, and then she'll tell them, and they file their permit with her. So if they need to sign, she'll just have them sign.
Okay.
The permit is with the town clerk. The piece we're approving is the schedule, and that they're going to comply with the requirements of the code, which is that when they get their insurance certificates and their health department renewal, which they won't do until later in the year or earlier next year, they'll present them. But their permit runs until December 31st, so they always get it in at the December meeting, so we can move forward for next year. So, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? I want to take a second to thank the Palmer family for all they do for the community, and they're holding a country Christmas event there this coming Saturday at 5 p.m. at the track. Just a little gathering and just to sort of celebrate Christmas for the kids. And they are applying to the planning board, by the way, hold an additional 12 non-racing events, and that's moving through the planning board under the special use permit. Actually, site plan permit process. Okay. Let's start with the transfer station. So I had a request from the transfer station staffing that we consider from January and February closing down the exchange. The reason being is water does collect in that area in front of it. It becomes icy. It becomes a hazard. Also, they have reported that the volunteer staffing has been dwindling, and especially in the wintertime when it gets really cold, it sort of becomes non-existent. I said I would bring it to you guys as a discussion item. So I'm bringing it, and we don't have to make a decision tonight. If you want to ponder it, if you want to talk to people, I just told them I would bring it to the board for consideration. They're saying after Christmas, that way people can still come, bring things. So they're talking basically after the new year for the January and February, and then reopening in March. Anybody have any?
I think that it would be a bad idea to do, the thrift store that works with my food pantry, they don't have heat in the building and they close over the winter too, that for donations, for drop-offs and everything. I think it's also probably a good idea to give our volunteers a break and not have them out there in icy, snowy conditions and having to sort through and carry TVs and things into the exchange room. But I'm open to hearing more opinions, that's just mine on it.
I would wanna do more, like, talking to our volunteer coordinator at the exchange and then the community members, cause there is definitely like a very, dedicated, exchange, base. And, I think kind of like I'd like to engage with them and see.
And that's fine. We can consider it and do it later.
I'll try to, have discussions
See if you can
this
get some
week
feedback.
so that, that we can make a decision this month.
Yeah.
Cause I get January and February is typically like slowest.
So I saw this months at the transfer station. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there when it's icy and I can see, I mean, it's a potential liability issue. But
There's no real easy way to stop it either.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm wondering about. If we shut it down and people, they're just gonna throw stuff out. And then we're contributing more stuff to landfills, or B, just leave it there and it's still a problem to deal with. We're still gonna have to be vigilant if it shuts down. So.
Agreed. It's more about the liability. I mean, it's working. I have been given sort of just observations, and I have not observed it because I'm not there as regularly, but in the last few months, there's pretty much only been a core group of 1 or 2 volunteers that are the ones that are always there. And the the volunteer staff seems to be dwindling. I don't know if that's the weather or if people are losing interest. And certainly the ones that are still doing it are there on a very regular basis, but it is the different numbers of people has certainly dwindled from what it was in the beginning. So, but it's more the liability. If it ices up and somebody slips and falls, we are responsible. And you can put salt on, you can break up the ice, but it's when it's 0 degrees, it's an ongoing thing. Every time it snows or rains, it collects there, and then so okay. So we'll discuss that further at our next meeting. Bridge New York. We are in a very, very exciting time. The Department of Transportation, who hasn't put out a Bridge New York project call since we got ours last time, has done a very unique thing this time. This is the letter that came from the state, the process guidance. What I'd like to call attention to is Dennis Doyle, the county planning director, brought to my attention, and it's on the back. It's on the back of the email that is from Jessica, the highway secretary, where Dennis explains that it is being done differently this year. Did I put that?
I don't have the email.
Yeah, apparently did not include it. Thought I did. None of us have it. What did I do?
I have one.
You have one?
Do you want to read it to us?
You have all of them?
Oh, I have one.
No,
It's in the
it's
middle
in
of
the
the
middle.
packet.
Apparently I don't have one, and maybe Aaron does. Yeah, I can borrow it.
No, I found it.
Okay.
It's
Apparently I just shorted myself.
1, 2, 3, and 4,
I got
5, 6 pages from the end.
Yeah. So if you go to the back of that is the email from Dennis, or actually it's the bottom of that email. So there is funding of $8.74 million. And 2/3 of that funding must be programmed to off-system bridges. And so
What's an offset?
an off-system bridge is a bridge that is not on a main road or thoroughfare, which is most of the bridges that we
Yeah,
own
yeah.
in our town that are not under DOT or county control. And the program is going to be administered by the County Transportation Council, not by the DOT for bridges. Culverts will still, the applications will go to the state. They will be judged on a regional basis, but you're competing against everybody in our region, which includes Dutchess County, Ulster County. I'm not sure if Orange is part of that region or not, but anyway, you're competing against a larger circle. The 8.73 is just for Ulster County for bridges. So I reached out to the highway superintendent, and that's where that letter from Jessica, the email, he recommends 2 bridges in our town that we consider if we want to do this. I then reached out to Jim Thatcher from CT Mail, who wrote, that's the company that wrote our original proposal. They are not on the list of engineering companies who can ultimately do the work, but they are very happy to write proposals at a pretty reasonable price. So that's the email from him today, where he says they would, he's giving us a proposal, and it just came in today because I reached out to him yesterday. They would propose up to 2 separate grant applications. They would approach it the way they did in 2020 with the Boy Snow Road Bridge, although at that one, they had reviewed it originally for a proposal to Ulster
Yeah.
County that we were not funded on because there wasn't enough money, and they recommended Bridge New York, and then we went through the Bridge New York process, which we did secure. So he put together a proposal of $4,800 for one application. And if we want to apply for both bridges, it would be $8,200. I would want to do some feeling out and see. Normally, you don't want to apply for 2 because they kind of look down on you if you apply for more than one bridge. You're probably only going to get one anyway, but we might want to just pick which one we think is the more important and focus all our attention on that. It's not about the cost of the application, but then again, neither bridge is, I think, going to be at the level of the cost of the Boyce Mill Road Bridge. I think they're going to be significantly cheaper. One of them is Project 32, and the other one was Sundown, one closer to Palentown Road, with the 2 bridges that the highway superintendent says are very much in need of being replaced.
I have experience with one.
The Project 32 one is a dead-end road that serves a very, very small number of residents, but important residents, yes.
All the residents are important.
And the one on Sundown is also, it's not a highly traveled road. I don't know what the car counts are. We would probably have to run car counts on it as part of the application process. But I wanted to just feel you guys out. We can decide next week. We don't have to decide now if we want to have further conversation independently with Jeff. He did provide both of these to me. He said he absolutely would support applying again. Jim Thatcher brought up, how do you feel about undertaking a new one? And I said, well, if we apply now, we're not going to get an answer till the end of 2024. By then, we'll be almost done with the one we're doing. So why not take on a new one? And I also get the feeling that this money is not going to come around again in the real near future. The state is really trying to respond to all these calls for local bridges. And that's why they're designated it by county. So all that being said, what do people, oh, there's my email from Jessica. It just got stuck to the other one. So what do people think? I just want to hear feedback. And like I said, we don't decide.
I personally, as a grant writer, think that we should apply for both bridges. The worst that can happen is they deny them, but you have to be in it to be able to be processed and be
Agreed.
recognized for it. And since they're specifically doing it for these off-system bridges, if it was like we were trying to apply for 2 main bridges like Boyce Mill, I'd be like, yeah, that's a really long shot. Don't waste the money, don't waste the time to try to do that. But since they're specifically for these off the grid bridges that don't necessarily affect, or could be on dead end streets that don't affect a large majority of people, but that still need to be repaired. I think we should just go for it and go apply for both of them. Like I said, the worst thing is they say no.
It's a reasonable
might as well.
cost.
How much was it again? The
Eighty for the two,
8,200.
8,200 for the two, or 4,800 for one.
And they're writing the grants for us?
Absolutely, they do everything. They will come do an analysis. They will write the grants. They will provide all the data. They did the last one for us, and their office is in Latham, but they have a Poughkeepsie office, and they've now raised the staffing at their Poughkeepsie office. So in his email, he said this can probably be handled through their Poughkeepsie office. And quite frankly, spending $8,200 to get a couple $1 million, to me, it's a no-brainer.
No, that's not a bad cost for a federal
Yeah.
grant to be charged either for working on that.
And last time, when we applied the last time, it was what, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, they charged us $4,000,
And that was for one. so
and that was for
wow.
one. So
That's
he's
not-
only gone
that's-
up $800 in 6
Especially if
years.
they're doing the analysis for us too.
They're doing
that's-
everything. Yeah.
That's a good price for having 2 federal grants written for you.
And they have a great track record of success of getting. And the fact that it's going, it's not gonna be the DOT's people reviewing it. It's gonna be Ulster County, which is a little inside. Now, I don't know how many other people are gonna apply.
I will say facility importance is a big chunk of the importance, so I
It
feel
is.
like the Project 32 bridge
May
would
not,
score very low.
it will. I think
It's
it
almost
will.
30% of the total.
Yeah. Well, we can feel them out
I'm
and
just
see.
saying, in terms of us thinking about spending 4,800 versus 8,200, that, or talking to Jeff about other bridges.
Talking to Jeff, or
Because that's just part of
culverts.
this opportunity. Is they're trying to fund bridges that are, what's it called again, the auxiliary bridges?
Off system.
Off-system bridges, but I think they are scoring bridges that have more high volume. traffic.
Well, we succeeded, I believe, on the Boyce Mill Road Bridge because
That's a
we,
bus.
we emphasized with letters of support from the school district, from the ambulance squad, from the fire district, that roadway, that bridge is important in saving time for our first responders. And like Mr. Fernino was saying earlier, the difference of 2 or 3 minutes can be massive in an ambulance or a fire. So I truly believe we won the last grant because we got all those letters. I don't know if although there is no other alternative for those people that live on the other side of the bridge, because the old roadway was abandoned quite some time ago. And quite frankly, the cost of rebuilding that road is probably a lot more expensive than the cost of the bridge. That's my opinion. I don't know that for
You think so?
exact, but what's that?
Do you think so?
I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think it's a distance. It's quite a distance. So
You can get through.
if you could even get through,
No, you can.
you can.
You won't be.
So,
That's what I mean, like even though it's.
or we could go back to Jeff and say, do you have other either bridges or culverts? The thing about culverts though is you're up against so many other people.
That is factored in.
Well, I think
separately.
since you've had
That's
written
all.
notice
I'm
twice
just
on
looking at the
the
analysis.
Sundown Road Bridge, that really should be a high priority. No, first
I
one was
think-
in 2019.
Yeah, we've got 2 written notices from residents about the Sundown.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should talk to Jeff. I think we should see. I mean, I don't know what would happen, because the bridge has been down, Project 32. I'll probably abstain, but just.
Right, with full disclosure, you live on Project
I
32
use
Road,
that.
so full disclosure
Um,
understood.
So I know it's been downgraded, the tonnage, the max tonnage has been lowered. I've had issues getting like septic tanks and stuff, but there are alternative routes. I think they could potentially restore the roadway connecting Stonyville. So, yeah, I think we should understand and prioritize. I agree, spend the money if we think it's a long shot, it doesn't necessarily make sense.
Well, the second one is costing $3,400.
Yeah.
The 4,800 is the first application. The 3,400 is the second, so. We can, feel free to reach out to Jeff directly if you'd like, if you want to forward anything through me to him, whatever you'd like. I just would like us to decide one way or the other at next week's meeting, so we give them, meaning CT Mail, because the applications have to be filed by January 26th. So I want to give them, especially with the holidays, give them as much time as possible. But he called me this morning, very interested and excited about working with us again. So, to me, it's a small investment. If you don't try, like Charlotte said, if you don't try, you don't get it. They're not going to give us the money just unless we provide an application.
The other thing too is we can call and ask any foundation you're applying to or any business that is offering a grant, we can call and ask them if this isn't gonna meet the parameters or the requirements of your grant from not having, we can get a feel and we can call and inquire.
I don't know if the state will do that, but we can find out.
They should.
They're usually pretty close. Now you can do a pre-application kind of thing, but I don't think in this case, because of the timing, I don't think they're doing the pre-applications.
No, what I'm saying, almost any entity will tell you what they're looking for, right? So that they don't waste their time.
Yeah.
Reading an application that wouldn't
It-
fit in their boxes anyway, so I'm saying we can
Yeah.
call to try to find out anyway.
Yeah.
For next meeting to see if who is funding it says it's not worth it or
Yeah.
not either.
It's scored by the independent committee. It's not scored by the DOT themselves. They accept, they basically call for volunteers, and they have a group of volunteers of engineers and experts in bridge building who score these applications, but they've always been very close-lipped as to how they do that. So we'll see.
There's a chart on the second page. It says that we should reach out with questions and
Okay.
tells us what we're not.
There you go. So we'll follow up. I'll try to get some answers.
We're Rochester?
No, that's
No.
correct.
No, that's-
No, we're Poughkeepsie. We're
Oh.
originating. Oh, and I didn't realize, I didn't look that, I got this email in a package and I didn't actually even realize that the email is from Sandra Jobson, who sits on the Ulster County Transportation Council, as do I. So I'll reach out to her directly and see what I can find. I'll see if we're wasting our time applying for a bridge that only has, we'll figure out how many houses live on the other side. See what she says? I'm sure though the answer will be depends, because it's a scoring thing that they start at the top and they just keep funding until they run out of money. So probably the answer is gonna be, because they have no idea how many applications
Yeah,
they're gonna
depends
get
on-
until they actually get them.
When Ulster
But-
County has 8.7 million.
8.73, I think,
Yeah.
that 2/3 of it has to be spent on
Right.
off system.
And
So-
they're like $1 million a pop.
Well, the
500.
Blissville is 2 and
Yes, that's not
Yeah,
they're
but that's-
growing.
But that's a substantial one. Which one
Yeah.
did we do 2 years ago, the smaller one?
That was a culvert.
Yeah, but it,
That
that
one-
one.
and yeah, it was- and that was-
substantial than that.
And we did a lot of that in-house, so that was about 350,000.
Yeah, so somewhere, 500 to 1.5 million is probably the average, so probably $1 million. There's probably
That's about-
there's probably 5 of these bridges getting funded and all.
Yeah, that's about what I'm thinking too.
It's also possible they have a little left over and they're like, oh, that's a small one, we can
Yep.
knock that out too.
Sure.
So
I
abstain.
hear that Councilman Coleman lives on that street. We can knock that
Still
out
abstain.
quick.
Okay,
Public safety.
moving on
Ride
into
my bike.
the ambulance district, contracts.
Okay.
I have, I shared with you by email, but I did bring copies of them. Oh, yeah. So we should start talking about them tonight. Rochester's ambulance. I more or less wanted to start the dialogue tonight. We don't have to go through it line by line. Unless anybody has any particular thing, that's the High Falls ones. And then the other thing is, the last payment is due for each of the ambulance districts, and these vouchers were not in last week's vouchers, so I'm gonna ask you to approve those two vouchers. I did speak with Mr. Bolin, who said the response rate for both is satisfactory in terms of we are still struggling with the financial records. I am going to, from the Kerhox and Accord one, withhold the amount that they owe us for the heating fuel and the fuel for the vehicles that they have been billed and not paid us for several months. So I am gonna withhold that, but provide the voucher to them so they know why, but we're basically paying ourselves back for what they owe us.
So this is not the total.
No, that's the total before, and I have to calculate the total amount of what they owe us, which is ultimately probably less than $8,000 to $10,000. But we do need it back by the end of the year, so. And I am going to suggest that we write into our contract with them next year that rather than us billing them and then paying us, that we just withhold the fuel costs on a quarterly basis from the money we pay them.
I think that's fair.
And because they are slow in getting us paid. The Accord Fire District, on the other hand, pays every month very well, so.
I personally with this kind of want to sit down now that I have both in front of me and
Yep.
do like a red line notes for
Yep.
this meeting.
Yep. I just
give a
wanted to see if
deeper
anybody
dive
had
into it.
anything that they really wanted to add to tonight's conversation. Otherwise, I'm gonna put it on the agenda for next week. Mary Lou can make any suggestions. I'm gonna ask, with the board's permission, I'll ask Dave to supply from the advisory committee any changes to the contracts. We don't have to have it done by next meeting, obviously, but I would like us to try to get it done before the too late into January, because their first payment is due February 15th. So.
When these go through February. Of
The
24.
contract actually goes through the end of December.
Okay, so this was made in February, but we cut it off.
Right. It's an annual contract. We have to do it annually because that's how the taxes are collected, is annually. So the contract has to mirror the taxing period of time.
Got it.
But we don't make the first payment until February 15th. So we just need to have a signed contract with them for first payment on this.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that came back in our discussions with our committee were figuring out how to get a better accounting of the financials. Understanding that they're a separate entity, they're a nonprofit, and they manage their finances independently. It still helps us in terms of planning, budgeting, and being able to go back to taxpayers and explain, why these taxes are being collected. There's still no question for me that this is the most economical way for us to provide these services. I think it's outstanding that both squads are still, where possible, leveraging volunteers and because they're doing those comments. I just think anything we can do to make it so that it's easier for this board and future boards to have a model to really understand, how we're funding these things, where possible gaps are, how we can work collaboratively is important. So I think the financials, that was the biggest thing I took back from the advisory committee, was we need to look at that.
And to add to that, so the county has this EMS committee that has been going on for probably a year, no, almost 2 years now. They hired a consultant who spoke with every agency in the county, spoke with every municipality in the county, spoke with the county. And they are preparing a report similar to what the state did. The state came out with an EMS report. Senator Hinchy was a big spearhead behind that. Not much has happened since then in the state level. One of the hopes was that out of it would come the ability for EMS to be districts to be set up similar to fire districts, where they could collect their own taxes. So currently, the only way an ambulance squad can collect with an ambulance district is directly through the municipality as a special district, whereas the fire district is an agency in itself in local government. They essentially, our fire district is a local government agency. And they report back to the comptroller and the Secretary of State, just like we do. So that's a hope. Whether it gets through Albany, who knows? I have no idea where it stands. I don't even know that any resolution or local, laws have been presented. I'm not sure.
It's a good reminder though. I think the commissioner election is on the 12th of December.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, fire commissioner's election, December 12th, at the firehouse. So at both firehouses, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, both firehouses. So thank you. So take a look. Think about it. Think if we need to change anything in there, because if we change anything, we want to get it back to them to give them the opportunity to look at what we're changing and give us feedback. If we're just going to present the same contract again, I don't think we need to, unless they have any issues with the contract. So, and thank you all for signing those vouchers and not getting those checks processed and let them know they're available, because we actually were supposed to pay those in November and it slipped through the cracks on all our parts, including them. So, Mary Lou, any thoughts on contracts of anything in particular? You're muted.
All I was doing was going like this. I haven't said anything yet. No, not right now. I just, if you guys have had any particular concerns this year, I may not be privy to the things that have happened all along, and maybe nothing's happened. Maybe everything's gone wonderfully. But if you guys have any particular concerns, why don't you email me about it and I'll look at the provisions and see if they can be tweaked a little bit if necessary.
The biggest has been the financial reporting, at least
Right.
on contracts, and that's really been the biggest issue. The calls, I want to applaud both agencies. They are succeeding, they are getting out, and I'm glad that we're able to help them financially, make sure they get out. So
Okay, so maybe we have dates in there, I think, for the financial reporting. Maybe if we add something that says that should they not be on time, they won't get their payments, and they won't get payments until, how long does it take you to look at it? Till 30 days after we've reviewed or something like that?
well, they go through the committee. The committee receives them first and then sort of forwards a recommendation to us.
Right, but maybe we want to put something in there so that the committee has at least 30 days to review. Or whatever. I'll look and see what the time period is right now between when we want them and when they get their next payment. And
Right.
if they don't get in on time, that maybe that next payment waits until
I
an
think it's
equal
about,
period of time is passed.
I think it's 45 days if I'm doing the math right, because it's basically the end of December and then the next payment is February 15th.
Right.
That's the end of
So
March. Yeah.
So maybe we put something in there that says if they're late, they don't get paid till 45 days after
Okay.
submittal.
Is there a reason we did the payments quarterly? Did we do it monthly to have a more,
We did it quarterly,
I know it's
just,
easier.
we used to do it one lump sum payment. I think we did it quarterly, sort of at their request. monthly becomes a lot more work, because if we're gonna release monthly payments, then they have to get monthly reports back to us. And the financial, I don't know.
I mean,
It may
Right,
be.
and your
hard.
committee has to get together every month in that case.
do they?
Yeah, because the committee gets the reports and then makes a recommendation back to us. That's why we have the committee. They're an advisory committee to us.
Every 2 months?
I don't think it's the time frame is the issue. I'm not sure what we're trying to achieve by giving it to them sooner.
Just having more of a consistent,
Yeah,
report comes in, payment goes out.
yeah.
I hear you on that, Michael, but it's also, you don't have much of a say in how they
Yeah.
operate, so
Right.
I think even if we did it monthly, like, it would just us having a little more oversight, but not, I don't think it would balance
Yeah.
for more of the
Yeah.
effort to make the committee every month and have to review every month too.
And them reporting quarterly was working for them. Reporting on a monthly basis might be a lot more work on the volunteers to try to do that. I mean, I'm sure they have a financial report at each meeting, but it may not be to the level that we're asking. So they haven't balked at it at all, and hard to find to leave it alone.
I'm fine with that. I know our committee wants to get better reporting out on the financials.
I think it's not timing, it's quality. And it's just that, and our committee ended up helping them to get what we got. So,
Let's see what the new bookkeeper
Yeah.
CPA does. If that should solve most of the problem. And then if it doesn't, then we can
always add something like the committee can request a report earlier than the quarter, like we can try to ask.
or we can just back the date up a little bit too, and instead of 45 days, we want to make it 2 months in advance, so we'll make it 2 months in advance.
But we still haven't seen any financials that have come out of once the bookkeeper.
The new, yeah, we
No.
haven't seen anything. from
They just, the bookkeeper has not started with the other agency yet. They're starting very soon.
Okay.
So the short answer is no, we have not.
All right, so yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
Get a good baseline.
Okay, next we created a new position for our code enforcement office
During budget time.
during budget time and left it title to be determined. I went online and did some research now that the county positions are all available. I'm providing the zoning coordinator position, which is our current position that we have approved for 37.5 hours, and our municipal code assistant, which is a title that the county has available already. We always can make our own proposal for a new position. However, that's a timely thing in that we have to give them a job description. They then review it, they come back with it, they either accept it or they don't. It usually takes several months for them to do that. And then we then have to take it. So if we can fit within a title that already exists in the county, we can just simply ask that it be assigned to the town of Rochester, and we can then fill that position. So
Is it a competitive position?
they both are, and at that level of code enforcement, any position we create is gonna be competitive. So, there's one copy of the existing. Now, we don't have to decide. So,
that's good act for you now. For everybody.
oh yeah, I gave you mine. Sorry. Did everybody get everybody get the code assistant? Yeah. I don't know if I printed 6 of everything, sorry. I think I printed 1 extra by mistake on that. So you don't have to decide tonight, but the municipal code assistant more fits what we were thinking about, in that the person will be a part-time zoning coordinator and a part-time code enforcement officer, not a building inspector, a code enforcement officer. So they would be addressing zoning code and other town code items. But the second work activity participates and it assists in enforcing local laws and ordinances related to zoning. The zoning coordinator can't enforce, whereas this person can. So, there's a lot of overlap between the two, but if we want that position to sort of be a assistant code enforcement officer, which is kind of the description that we were thinking along those lines, I think the municipal code assistant is a better way to go. Now, what we would have to do is we would have to contact the county and find out if there is already a list of people for this position. Just from my experience, I highly doubt one exists. If it does, not, and they grant us this position, then we can appoint somebody provisionally. When they offer the test, they would have to take the test. That could be anywhere from 6 months or 2 months, even to 4 years later. And they would just hold the provisional title until the test would come. The zoning coordinator was the same thing. We created the zoning coordinator position. We are the only town I know that has a zoning coordinator in Ulster County. Although I will tell you, the village of Big Falls is looking at creating this title for them, because Tim Rogers, the mayor, called me the other day and asked me questions about how it's working.
Can I share this with the building
Yes,
department?
yes. And I've had conversations, so they know. I said, we were gonna talk about it first, and I did let the person know who would be filling this position that we were considering this. There was concern about the competitiveness, and I said, but no matter what we do, now, we could do nothing, we could leave it at just a zoning coordinator, but the problem there is they can't do enforcement.
This list looks like kind of what we're thinking about. It's
Exactly,
like
yeah.
training under, and like, but also can investigate complaints.
Right.
And assist in prosecuting violations.
It's a zoning coordinator / code enforcement
Yeah.
officer, which is exactly what we were envisioning.
Yeah.
And shame on me when I was thinking we could do a half-time in each position, and we can't. So we have to create one job title for that job. So,
I think they have this position.
so in the meantime, I could reach out to the county and ask if there is a current list for this position,
Okay.
which would help us, and I'll see if I get an answer. I may not. They may say, oh, you gotta ask for the position first before we tell you if there's a list, but I don't know. We'll find out. So does anybody have any concerns if we take those steps and you can look at them and see what you think? And if we do want to request it for January, we should decide next meeting that we are gonna do a resolution authorizing that request. But I think this is what we're looking for. I was hoping something existed and I found it, so. Next, we created, within the budget, a 20-hour maintenance supervisor kind of position. There are 2 options that I found that fit what we were talking about. They both are listed as CSEA positions, which means they are probably county positions, but I don't think we're precluded from it being a local municipality position as well. So one is called building maintenance supervisor, and one is called building maintenance leader. I think either one fits. However, one of them is non-competitive and one of them is competitive. So we may want to take that into consideration.
I think we definitely should try to have like I know when we were talking about this position, we envisioned it as more maybe a retirement for someone older in age that doesn't want to do necessarily the physical work, but supervise to do all of.
But can do the physical
Can
work.
do it if
They're not
needed, but
restricted.
they're not restricted, but that they don't necessarily have to. So I think making it a competitive job for something that's normally a trades job where they have to take written exams might not get us the best pool of applicants.
Well, one is called supervisor, one is called leader. I actually like the leader terminology better because I think that more envisions what we're talking about. So for the public who's maybe observing in the public here, we created a part-time position to sort of oversee all our buildings. Right now, it falls to my office. Things like scheduling the furnaces to be cleaned and maintained, or when something breaks, that's beyond the capacity of our one building worker. Finding a contractor, and it all falls to my office to deal with all that. So we are looking at a part-time position to sort of be the overseer of all our facilities, meaning this building, the town hall building, the highway building. The highway superintendent is not responsible for the building itself. They're responsible for all the vehicles and everything that go into that building. But the maintenance of the building falls to the general fund. There's also the transfer station, the dog kennel, the courthouse. The Palentown schoolhouse. There's a fair amount of buildings. And quite frankly, trying to stay on top of it all gets a little overwhelming. So we budgeted for a 20-hour person to sort of be the maintenance and overseer, kind of like a building manager or facilities manager position, who could do the work, but could also be the keeper of the records and know when this needs to happen and know when these filters need to be changed and things like that.
We also talked about our buildings condition survey that we had done and can help us prioritize what and help with budgeting.
So my inclination is to go toward the building maintenance leader position, and I think we were saying the similar thing, Charlotte. That's not a position. However, I don't know if we propose one of these at 20 hours, they might come back and say it's not competitive anyway. But I don't see that great a difference between the two. Again, take a look at them. We don't have to decide tonight. I'd like to decide this next week as well, so we can get to the county. But take a look. Want to give you guys the information. Boards and commission members, I've already covered that, and I've given you all the copy of the open positions. Just let anybody who wants to apply, certainly an application is fine. They also can simply send a letter or email expressing interest. It doesn't have to be a formalized application. And I'll be collecting, we gave the current people till January 7th.
Okay, I was gonna ask what deadline, because I think setting a deadline can be really useful.
Yeah, I think we should work with that January 7th, because that traditionally what we do is at our workshop meeting in January, we do our interviews, and then we do our appointments in the first week in February. That has been the norm of what we've done. And the reason we do that is sometimes with a shift of board members, we think it's more fair that the current board does the interviews rather than the outgoing. So sorry, Adam, you're gonna miss the interviews.
That's okay.
So I've set a deadline of people letting me know if they want to reapply as the 7th. We don't necessarily require them to come back in for a new interview unless we choose to. They just simply send a letter. Things like the HPC and the ECC, it's usually just a reappointment unless there's some very compelling reason not to. So it's usually simply a reappointment. Some of the other ones are more competitive positions where there's a limited number of positions and we see what we get for letters. I have received 3 and now 4 letters of interest for positions that are not currently seated members. And I'll be gathering all that and sharing it with you, but rather than sending it to you one at a time, I'll collect them all and give them all to you at one time. So to make it easier for you.
Mike, I just had a quick question about one of the seats for
Yep.
the Recreation Commission. I thought we had more vacancies on there.
No, because when we changed the name, we changed it to a 7-year term, and it's a one each. It's like the planning board now. 1 seat comes up each year.
No, but we have 7 members now, like fully seated.
Right.
In that commission, that's what I thought. I
When
thought we had
we
one
do.
extra. I thought we had only 6 seated, so
No,
that makes
no,
sense.
we're
that's where my
full.
confusion
We're full
was. I
right
thought
now.
that.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
full right now.
That's
believe me.
fine.
Yeah, I know it took us a long time to get full, but we actually are full.
Well, yeah, because last I remember when we had like 2 resignations, but then I thought we only interviewed 1 person.
Well,
but I
we
might
had
be wrong in my
yeah,
mind.
we had a few, and I'll double check, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe. we're-
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I checked.
Okay,
I double checked ahead of the.
oh, good, okay,
HPC has like a range,
yeah.
so that's the one where it's like, there's like 9 seats, but I forget what the
So
minimum
It's-
is.
number 5.
It's on the list. The HPC can have, by our law, from 7 to 15 members. And the ECC can be anywhere between 3 and 9 members. But our goal is always to fill it. If we do appoint though, because we have so many reappointments this year on the HPC, if we do appoint new people, I'm gonna recommend that we don't put everybody at 3-year seats because
Yeah.
otherwise the entire board is all gonna, and we may wanna spread them out. We
Yeah.
don't have to give everybody a 3-year seat. We can spread it out a little bit. Cause it used to be a third, but that all sort of fell by the wayside. Okay, moving to the open house dates for the zoning. I do wanna, Michael, thank you. There was a letter that was sent to us. The resident reached out and Michael shared it. Unfortunately, the original copy was misplaced. There, the comments,
The way I shared it is like.
yeah.
I love it.
It worked. I figured out the easiest way to do it, and so it was a photo, and I just blew it up to 11 by 7. You cut it in half if you want. You got 2 8.5 by 11 pages. This was about the short-term rental part of the law. So this was a comment on the zoning code itself. So we have the subdivision code, which we had very few comments on until we sort of talked about it a little bit. We did close that public hearing, held it open until next week for comments. We got back
Written comments.
written comments. We got back the county comments. We got back local planning board comments. My question for this board is, do we as a body want to work next Thursday on reviewing those comments and potentially incorporating change into the code? We want to, in theory, adopt all 3 at the same time. But if we adopt one before the others, it's okay. It just won't take effect until all 3 are adopted. The only reason I'm suggesting we sort of pick away as we can is it's gonna be less work down the road on us.
Well, I felt like subdivision, like we worked on that for a few years. We've had several comment sessions. Like I feel good about the subdivision code. We could look at those comments next week.
Okay.
I don't know how everyone else feels.
And potentially voted in.
No, so what we would do, and Mary Lou, so we would make any changes. Mary Lou, because the comments that we're changing came from county planning board and the local planning board, do we do a re-review, a re-referral, or does it just depend on what we change? If we incorporate their comments in.
Yeah,
and
no, you don't have to
change,
no.
you don't have to re-refer it. So, but, and we did hold it open until next week, so if we get any more comments on the subdivision code, I'll share those with
Yeah, that's the only one we left open to.
Yeah,
you.
that's-
Yes. The others are held to have a physical public hearing continued at a later date.
Yeah.
So the subdivision, what I would ask is, and I gave you a new printout of the code and a printout of the counties and the comments from the planning board. I don't think we had any public comments at the first public hearing we had back earlier this year on that topic. So if you could just bring with you next Thursday those, so I don't have to print them out yet again. And we'll go through them. We can decide at that point. We have to wait 8 days before we adopt anything, no matter if we make any changes.
Yeah, no matter.
Yeah, so if we have received no more written comments, that's the date of our next meeting, the 14th. We can make whatever changes and we can certainly put it back out there for the public. And if we want to reopen the public hearing, we can, but we don't have to re-refer it to the county or the local planning board because we're just using their comments or considering their comments in changes. The zoning amendment, We've gotten some comments back, not a huge number. The majority of comments actually, obviously, were about the map. I continue to maintain a list of anybody who stops in my office of SBL numbers. I think at some point we need to just do like a wholesale look at that all. We did make notice that we would hold at least one, and I think we came to a conclusion of two. So my question is, tonight, do we want to pick dates for those? Now, we did get an email, and did you guys get the email recently requesting that we sort of do this sort of as soon as possible, because some people are concerned about the moratorium expiring. Do we want to pick a date before the holidays and then another one in January, and then after those two dates, then we'll set the next public hearing? That's kind of my thought process.
Can we just clarify?
Yeah.
So the moratorium expires on December 15th.
Correct.
We can't do a new moratorium in time because of
The time frame
that
of
needs
doing
to
it.
happen there. Yeah. Isn't it the case that, and I'm thinking back to the original discussion, anybody who would come to the planning board with a project could potentially be subject to the new zoning code changes and be working at risk, isn't that?
It depends on when we adopt the code. It depends on how we word the local law. We will have to, when we adopt the local law, we will have to establish a defining factor of who has to follow the new code versus who has to follow the old. An example of that could be that any applications in front of the planning board have to have a seeker determination. Or you don't want to do just anybody who's filed an application, because then as soon as you announce that, you get a rush, people filing applications, that a number of them would be probably frivolous applications to get in line to, sort of stop the process. So you want to set a dividing point that's fair to the person. Seeker is often used as that, it has a negative declaration under seeker, or that it has a determination under seeker, or you set a very defined moment in the review process as you're dividing one. So anything that has achieved that is allowed to continue under the old code because they've already started. Now, we could say anybody who doesn't have an approval has to go to the new code, but that's not really fair to anybody who might be going through the process.
In the past, Mike, didn't we do that if you had at least been scheduled for a public hearing?
Public
Because then
hearing,
you've had
that's another benchmark.
because I think in the past we've said at that point, they've put a lot of time and money into it and they have a complete application.
So I guess the crux of my question is, just because the moratorium is issued, it doesn't mean that anybody can just throw an application in and
No.
automatically.
No, they still have to follow the existing zoning code.
No, I'm saying, but they could also have to follow the proposed zoning code that's.
Depending on the process of their application.
It depends where they are.
and our code.
It's all about, the timing of
The
Yeah,
time-
by the time you pass a new code, they might have approval already under the
I see.
Current.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, and if they have one meeting, public hearing is set, then
And what Mary Lou said is what we used last time. We said, if you've achieved public hearing, because by definition, when you achieve public hearing, you have a complete application. Seeker determination is the next step above that, but I would be comfortable with saying you've been scheduled for a public hearing, because our planning board doesn't just lightly schedule applications for a public hearing. They review it, they make sure they have all the information they need, and then they set it for public hearing. And I think, so that would be a fair benchmark, but we have to establish that in the local law to say when it takes effect and how it takes effect. That has to be one of the whereas sections in the adoption of the local law.
What's the minimum timeline if we wanted to consider a new moratorium?
We would have to establish a local law. We would have to present it to the county planning board and the local planning board for comment. They have 30 days to respond back. And I'll be honest.
And you have to have a public hearing because it's a new
And we have to
law.
have a public hearing, and I will guarantee you, they will deny it. because we've been in one, they are not fans of moratoriums much greater than a year to a year, you know. We pushed the year and a half because they got 30 public hearing notices from us and they saw we were working on this process.
And I also don't love the idea.
And moratoriums are for a brief stopgap measure. The longer they go on, the less the courts like them.
But I don't think we have to be afraid of possible reactions either. I mean, it just means the current zoning code continues. The current zoning code is not bad.
We've heard a lot of support for the
Yeah.
current zone.
Yeah. The things we're working on are sort of corrections to problems that we have discovered in application of the zoning. So
Yeah.
the current zoning code is certainly, it's not going to be where you can just come in and do anything you want.
So my concern is, I know we didn't hear a lot about the zoning amendments. We heard a lot more about the zoning map.
Yeah.
I don't want to take that as an indication that there aren't concerns about that. We heard, there were some things that were very controversial that we made changes to improve based off of public comment feedback. So because it was such a short timeline, I want to make sure that people are going to respond to what's the biggest thing in front of them, which was the zoning map.
Right.
I do want to make sure we give people enough time to look at the actual local law 13, which is extensive. I mean, how many pages? Over 100.
227.
Yeah, so it's a lot.
George, 77?
Every page didn't change, but I'm inclined to want to make sure we feel confident that we've heard.
And we just got from the local planning board their comments on the zoning code, and the planner that is their consultant did a very detailed analysis and primarily definitions. We got a lot of kudos for a lot of the things that we put in there, but he did really dig deep into the definitions, and there's some really good comments from him that I'll be sharing with all of you. So with that being said, though, do we want to try to schedule one meeting before the holidays like we talked about? We will certainly have a second one sometime in January, but I think we should try to.
I am super opposed to that because one, it's the holidays, it's a busy season for most people in general. I think how the timing of when the letter was sent and received and how it blindsided people the week of Thanksgiving, we owe the people of this town to kind of make up for that and not requiring them in the middle of holiday shopping and planning and travel plans and everything, throwing a public hearing.
No, but
to only get.
This isn't a public hearing. This is a public information.
But to throw the session where they can come and ask us questions and we can hear comment and we can have a back and forth in the middle of that, I think is wrong.
Just to counter that point, though, there is a lot of folks that really don't have the information that they need, and to delay them another month to not be able to get the information that they're desperately looking for, I don't think is.
Whoever can come, and if we only get 50 people to show up and have 50 conversations, it's still 50 people we talk to. It's not gonna change the fact that we're gonna do another one in January. What it's gonna do is give people the opportunity to come in 2 different shifts.
Well, I would prefer to approach it backwards, which is I think that we got as many people aware because we did mailing. That we normally don't do mailings for changing laws because we're changing, because the proposed change had to do with rezoning parcels. I feel like we saw a certain number of people that were able to come, a bunch of people were not able to come. I think in order to announce the info sessions, we have to do it in a mailing. So what my proposal would be is that we think about the 2 dates. We would put those in the same letter so people know that they're not just getting a letter telling them about one, they're getting a letter telling about the 2 opportunities. But then we look at when the letters can go out, how the 10 days that we think we want to give it for it to hit people's mailboxes, and like where that puts us, because people need notice. They don't need just like 1 day notice to plan. They need to be able to plan at least
Right.
2 weeks in advance.
Well, we have other ways of getting that notice out too, in addition to the letters. I mean, we can do a lot. We can do it on the website. We can get it out in newspaper articles. We can get it out in Facebook. I heard people wanting to have one sooner rather than later. And so my suggestion, and I agree with you, putting both dates in the letter is the way to go. So we're doing one mailing. But I would like us to do one the week before Christmas and then one in like mid-January.
We can do 1 and 2, right?
We can do as many as we want, but it's up to, and we don't all have to be present. We have to schedule them as board meetings, which is why we have to make decisions so Kate can get the advertisement out of them officially as board meetings. Because if more than 2 of us are present, it's a quorum.
Well, the week before Christmas, what day? Because that's the.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking, the week of Christmas is not between Christmas and New Year's is a terrible idea. But
Because the week before is the 18th, which is
Right.
13 days.
Yeah.
I do think it's on their radar. They're looking for
yeah,
dates.
people are looking for it.
I
mean,
would
I've had-
suggest a
yeah.
meeting during the week in December and then a Saturday in January,
That's what I
would be
was
my
thinking.
guess. And if you wait too much in January, you're more likely to get more snow. You don't know what the weather's gonna bring.
Excuse me, you are calling for a snowstorm in January, Kate? And the people of the town?
I would like to check out at the firehouse though, because the week before Christmas, the 19th, this place is already booked. The 20th, they're doing it by Zoom on the 20th. They're not doing it, but we can't do 2 Zoom meetings at the same time.
The
So,
21st
and the
is the
21st
ZBA.
is the ZBA, so that whole week is shot.
Could
But
we do it at the?
I guess.
I'm sure we could do it at the firehouse. We don't have the ability to stream it, but then again, it's one-on-one conversations. It's not a presentation per se, so there really isn't a lot of benefit to streaming.
I respectfully disagree with that, Mike. There could be questions asked that are general that even though we're not giving a presentation on what changes were made, like we're not doing a whole presentation
Right.
with it. Benefiting from being able to hear other people's questions and our answers. to
But I'm
them.
envisioning that's gonna be small groups around the room talking
You know what we did
together.
for the info
Yeah.
session? I did general questions, and then when everyone was ready to like break out, I just stopped
Yeah.
the recording, and then it captured the
That's what I mean,
overview.
something like that,
Yeah.
like do the general question.
Yeah, we
like
could do
general
something like that.
questions.
That's
Okay, well then we can't do it that week then, though, because that week is shot.
Well, we hit the 20th.
The 20th is the housing committee.
But
Yeah,
aren't they, didn't we say they're not meeting here?
No,
They're
but they're
zooming.
they're using our Zoom account right now, because they still don't have the new one set up.
Can they find an
Yeah.
alternate location?
They're not
using
meeting
our
here, they're
Zoom.
meeting by,
Sign it, Zoom's anywhere.
yeah.
Michael Dome's on the
Yeah.
housing committee and how many issues I've had. being
And what
able
was
to
the
get us to
19th
have an
again?
actual-
ECC doesn't
And-
want to meet on the 26th, so obviously they moved their meeting to the 9th.
To me, this is we got a lot of feedback on Thursday. I think I'm worried if it goes past January.
I agree.
I want people to,
I want to be able to have the
Keep it
meeting, and
focused.
that's why, but if we're trying to make it so it fits within the, getting a mailing out, we need enough time to.
look, let's send a mailing, I'll do
Right.
3, I'll do 4.
But
What's the proposed?
what's the
date?
dates though? Pick some dates, and we gotta,
What date
if we're
in
gonna do it
January?
here, and want it to be zoomed out, then we have to do it here.
I mean, we could also record it and put it on the YouTube channel,
How can we record it though? If it's
that's a
somebody else?
laptop or.
Just record it and then make it a YouTube video.
Yeah.
So
I-
we
I
won't
mean,
have it
I-
live.
I think personally, I think that's less. But I'm not saying, I'm not dismissing but I think,
Well, the 20th could be a potential first date, what could be a potential,
You have the Rondo Band and Choir concert.
oh, is that night?
Been reminded many times,
Okay, that's gonna be
not this time.
an important date for
A lot of
probably a
band
lot
members.
of people.
Yeah.
Why is the week between Christmas and New Year?
I just think
It's
that
a lot
of
that
people
week,
are-
a lot of people are busy. The 28th, we already have our audit meeting. So we could potentially do it on the 27th.
22nd on Friday.
No, 27th would be a Wednesday.
No, I'm looking at the 22nd. I'm looking at trying to do it before.
You also really, you don't want to do it on the 22nd anyway, because that's Christmas weekend.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it in that
21st is what?
ZBA.
The locations though, I mean, you know, let's go down to the fire hall, see if they have availability for us, and the same thing, we'll record it and post it.
Or can the ZBA go?
Or the 20th. Because we would do the same thing on the 20th.
Yeah.
But what could it, I'm just thinking about if we're gonna
You can,
think about
you could
scheduling-
do it on the night of the 18th here. I can't be here because there's a legislature meeting that night. There's some very important issues that I'm going to be speaking at public comment on the legislature. So the board is welcome to do it that night, but I can't be here.
I'm unavailable the 18th.
I could do the.
I could do the 18th, but that's.
I have another board meeting that night, so I can
I'll do the late.
Yeah.
and it's only 12.
It's only-
I know and I hear you guys about wanting to have one done in December to appease and start to get people information and answers. But to counter that and at the same time, trying to force this into a spot that we don't have with a meeting or this recording, that recording. I think if we set 3 dates in January and in this notice that we send out to the papers and we mail, if we make it very clear. We're not ignoring this is on pause until January, so everyone can make it through the holidays, nothing will be voted on. And ensure people that this process is at a complete pause until this information session happens. Nothing in the process is moving forward, that is gonna be better and we're gonna get more people involved and make more people generally okay-ish, if not happy with our decision with that, because we're not forcing them to come out in the middle of their Christmas shopping or their planning. We're not trying to force it into a spot or at a different center, at a different meeting place. We're not trying to do a recording that technology wise is not helpful with us. But if we do a very well-written letter to them and present, these are the 3 dates we're doing in January, I think that might be our best course.
We're going to run into the same problem finding 3 dates in January, I'll be honest, because this place is booked so often. You know, there's really, because of all the meetings of all the boards and commissions, which is great. There's probably only 4 days in January, short of weekends, that.
Well, I think one should be a weekend day to.
Well, I agree.
Get people in. Who
I agree.
necessarily don't wanna be here that late, as much as I hate giving up the only 2 days I have free, if not only one of a weekend, because I work 3 jobs. I would do that for this, but I think that. Right.
I just,
In,
Can I just-
I think we heard from a lot of people though that they wanted one soon.
we heard from I saw one email that someone wanted us to get this.
No, I mean, from the
This
people who
close
spoke,
because
they were looking for, and not everybody walked out with answers.
Can I just, I know this is a board decision, but can I ask Kate, was just talking about being the face of the town and who's probably hearing from more, what's your sense about the holiday week?
I would do one the week of the 18th to the 22nd at a night, during the night. And I would do at least one in January on a Saturday.
We could do two in
Because I
January.
do think people, while this is fresh on their mind, they want answers, and then when they go back in January, they might have more questions that they didn't get at the December one that they're gonna want in January.
And we're doing we should
And
make it clear it's the same
That's been
session.
an ongoing call, we're only on Tuesday, but the last 2 days, people wanna know if the town board has already scheduled them. So it's on their radar. They wanna know when this is gonna happen. and I think they want to know sooner.
I agree. I agree with
I
that.
mean, we could do it, we could do the first one all Zoom, no? I guess
Not
not.
as
No.
necessary.
No, it needs to be, this is why I don't really see that Zoom as productive. It needs to be, I've had so many conversations where you're standing in front of the map with one or two people and you're pointing this property here. And like somebody who came in today, I was able to relay the exact conversation we had about their property and why we changed it. And this one was going from R5 to R2, which you would think somebody wouldn't have concerns about. They actually are sort of fighting because, not fighting, but they would prefer it stay R5. They were trying to hear our reasoning. And I remembered the exact dialogue we had about the property, and I was able to relay it one-on-one to them. Whereas that's not a dialogue that should be taking place with 60 other people in the room. I think all 5 of us should be sort of separate, and people were talking to us one-on-one or one-on-two, and we're giving them, it's not a meeting. It's like a parent-teacher conference kind of thing, where.
I also think one of the big things that I don't think many people understand is the change of their uses. In many circumstances is either going to be, next to nothing. But they need that opportunity to talk to somebody about that.
I mean, I did get a call today of somebody who's changing from AR3 to R5. Not a big change for them because it's only a 5-acre parcel, but they're in the process of building a second structure on the property for an accessory use. That because of the shape of their property, the difference in the setback from AR3 or A3 to R5, from a side yard setback standpoint, the architect called me and he said, it's not going to fit on the property with the new setbacks. And it was something that I never thought about. Now, he's going to go ahead. I said, if you go ahead and apply for a building permit now, it's not going to change anything, and he's going to do that. But he called me and he said, so, what are our recourses? And I said, well, you can apply to the ZBA or, and it was something that I freely admit did not really hit my radar, that the setback changes, the uses aren't really that different, but the setback changes are different.
So I hear what you're saying, Mike, about the value in having breakouts and like smaller discussion and specific, like looking at maps, and like that would be very difficult to stream. I also heard people wanting to just know generally and like what is going on, what the history of the zoning changes are. Councilman Coleman and I have a PowerPoint presentation. We did 10 info sessions last year where we have this, like, I think it would be important that there be some time spent, even if it's just 30 minutes, reviewing that, and then we can, because there were people wanting to know that aspect of it, and if people were here, they heard some of it, but I think that was like off the cuff, and like having something like that, I think would be helpful. I think if I hear, I think that it's, yes, and I think we could probably put something together for the 20th, but I think we should do 2 in January.
And I'm fine with that.
One, if we could
What do
find.
we do about the house?
Well, can I try to find another Zoom account?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I'm trying to get it set up right now, but it just,
No,
to
for
be
us,
honest,
I can,
no.
if it's
Oh,
just
for
for our
us?
meeting,
yeah,
I can
Absolutely.
post that to the YouTube.
Yeah.
That's what I did for the boards and
Yeah.
commissions.
we're not gonna have it so people can zoom in. It's just a Zoom account for us to broadcast out.
Yeah.
So
I'll
absolutely.
just handle the Zoom account.
Okay,
Why would we let people zoom in?
what?
Can we let people zoom in?
Then one of us has to be moderating that to let people in and out and answer questions. I think the more important, the important part of it, Michael, is to get people information. And I think the technology it's
Well,
if you want to volunteer to be that person, then that's fine. I'm not gonna sit there on the computer and moderate it all night. Let people in
I
and
mean,
out.
we can make it so that you can only view on Zoom, like, we can set it up so that you don't have to
Yeah.
approve people to come in, it can just be
Yeah.
remotely and no participation. via
Okay,
Zoom.
I
But
think-
then how are they gonna ask questions?
That's what I
mean,
just said, no participation via Zoom.
Then why not just let them watch it on YouTube?
But
Because
and
it's
we
the
had
same thing, that's
questions
what I'm
over
saying,
Zoom.
we still have to go on.
I mean,
But
you'll
that
go
was,
and ask the
that was,
These are all solvable problems.
yeah,
We can have people participate on Zoom, just one of us have to commit to being the Zoom
Yeah.
person.
I just want it to be as accessible. to
I
people as
understand what
possible.
you're saying, Michael, but we also, I don't wanna get so caught up in the technology for, we had 3 people Zoom in the other night.
Yeah, so that's
That was
fine.
it, 3. I know, but my point is, we had 90 people in the room. To me, the people that are present, that's, in percentages, that's a very tiny percentage.
Yeah, no, I know, I just, look, our town is 80 square miles, it's
I get it.
not as easy for everybody.
But also, we sent out 525 letters and we had
To that
90
point.
people.
Yeah, are we gonna send letters to everyone? or
Yes.
just the
Yes.
people-
I'm gonna
like,
resend to
the
the,
entire town.
no, I'm gonna send to the letters to the people that.
With the zoning
Yeah.
I kind of think we should.
Yeah.
I know it's money, but I feel like,
Well, it's money and it's time, and quite honestly, to do all that data is gonna take a week to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know who's got that time. I think it's more important to get it out to the people that we're changing.
Plus, like I
People
said,
that aren't changing,
I was just gonna offer that.
Yeah.
I mean, we could always put that.
they go out
insert.
December 31st.
You could
So,
put
Well,
an
no,
insert
it'd
for
be
the
like the
January
29th.
dates.
yeah,
Okay,
I think we should do that.
insert.
yeah,
I was just gonna offer that.
We can-
Okay, thank
we
you.
can do that, but not for the December.
Right, no, yeah, right.
Because to try to do that mailing, and quite frankly, part of that is why we're having the executive session. It's, unless you want me to do it at 3:00 in the morning, it's not physically
No,
possible.
if we can get it, and with the tax bills.
Somebody else wants to volunteer to do it, have at it, but
How many envelopes? 4,000?
4,300.
I used to do this professionally.
Oh.
I would be happy to,
Was it-
not, I mean, even for the
Let's-
500.
Instead of getting off, let's
Can I just
pick
like,
dates,
even
so.
for the 500, I can help.
I have the list.
Okay.
It's done. That's easy.
Okay.
If we mirror the same list we sent it out to, I can do that in
I
an
think
evening.
we should do that for
Yes,
this.
But if we want to send it to every resident, every household in the town, that's another story.
Send out with the tax bills.
For the
For the January.
January dates.
Okay.
Yes. Okay,
So now let's
January
pick
dates.
dates. So are we gonna, December 20th?
We're doing December 20th, and we're gonna figure the tech out.
At what time? Because we need to do that resolution tonight
Yes,
for that one.
we should, yeah.
So Kate can get the notice out.
Okay.
6 or 6:30?
Third is better for me.
Okay. Okay, so let's get that one before we move on. I'm gonna make a motion that we hold a public information session regarding the zoning changes in the zoning map on December 20th at 6:30 PM at the Harold Lipton Community Center, and request the town clerk submit notice. It doesn't have to be a public hearing notice, though. We'll
Right.
do a news item. And the supervisor provide letters to be mailed out for that date, and I will do my best to get them out by Thursday of this, which will be 13 days before that meeting.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we'll pick the other dates and we'll include them in that mailing. So,
Should we just then schedule those meetings?
yeah, well,
So that-
let's figure what the other dates are.
Do we know what, if there's events in January on the Saturdays?
Very
Nope,
rare.
Okay.
it's very rare.
Okay.
I have a family obligation on the 13th and I can't be here. And the 15th is Martin Luther King Day, so the 13th, 14th, 15th is probably people out of town,
Yeah,
family.
January 20th would be probably a good Saturday.
Do we want to do the 6th or do we want to do the Saturday last?
Did you just say the 20th?
I did.
Someone oppose the 20th? Cause I'm fine.
I just didn't know if we wanted to do the Saturday earlier in the month rather than at the end of
I personally, if I'm gonna meet, if I wished as a voting member of this board to be in attendance, would appreciate not having it the first Saturday of
Okay.
the month.
the month. Okay, then we'll do it on the
Just
twentieth.
because I have not stopped working for the
Okay.
past 2 months and feeding all the members of our community who need it, so.
Then we'll do it on the
You guys are
twentieth.
welcome to do it a different day, just knowing that I.
No,
probably
we'll do it on the
won't
twentieth.
be
We'll
here.
do it on the twentieth. So the twentieth, so then let's find a different day.
What time are we doing?
Yeah, we should set a window, right? So that, or should we just say a start time?
No, I think we can do a
I think
window.
we should do a window, so that it's clear.
9 to
this time
noon?
between This time.
That's what we were doing our zoning meetings as, basically. 9 to noon. I
10
think-
to 1?
Yeah,
10 to 1, like later in the morning.
okay.
Yeah, can we do 10?
If you, yeah, because if you do it midday, it
10 to 1
sort
is
of kills
good.
people's days. So 10 to 1, okay, so the 20th, 10 to 1. And then I think we should try to pick the week of the 8th, if possible, for the second one then.
I can't do Tuesdays.
Tuesdays are very important.
Well, the 11th, we already have a workshop meeting. The 10th, there's nothing scheduled here.
Okay.
The 8th is the planning board, so that won't work. So we pretty much have the 9th or the 10th.
The 10th.
Does the 10th work for people? Wednesday?
Does this right now.
Yeah, as of right now.
Okay.
yeah.
Also at 6:30?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll make a motion then to schedule public information meeting on January 10th at 6:30 PM till 9:30, 3-hour window.
Sure.
Okay, so 6:30 to 9:30. And should we schedule, make the December
I would
20
say,
be 6:30 to 9:30 as well?
then we have to be here until 9:30. Is everyone okay with that?
I would.
I would just put a
Let's do
start time on the
December-
evening.
Okay, so starting at 6:30. I just, to be accessible to everybody, like if so, I don't want somebody to think, well, if I don't get there till 8 o'clock, they may not be there, we may. I also don't want somebody to come and then we've all left.
Yeah.
So,
But that's, yeah, I think the Saturday one, having a window is good. I think the evening ones,
Okay.
just to start time.
so January 10th at 6:30 PM and January 20th from 10 AM to 1 PM. At the Harold Lipton Community Center. And requesting the town clerk send out notice of the January dates we did tax bills. I'll get you the letter,
And that'll be in addition to the ones that we send out.
Yeah. which will have all 3 dates.
Did you make that one?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Okay, just so after we have those 3 meetings, just thinking ahead of next steps, we will need to then have us meet as a board and discuss our comments, or we can do that, or we can schedule another public hearing. The January 25th would be our audit meeting if we wanted to reschedule, but I don't know if we want to then respond and make changes before we schedule. the
I
next
think we're
public
gonna
hearing.
wanna wait on, but it's either,
Bear in mind that as the way we're doing this, we're not gonna get referral to the county now probably till their March meeting, because we're not gonna get on their February agenda
for the,
for the mapping and for the zoning code for that matter. So we're probably looking at March 6th, which means the earliest we get this adopted is mid-March. It is what it is. So,
Mike, I just wanna make one request with the letters that go out for this first round.
yeah,
I think it needs to be very, I know we're putting 3 different dates on there, but I think it needs to be clear and that we need to state that we want to and encourage hearing about these changes from people. I think the last letter was a little too non-personal
well,
whatsoever.
the last letter was
which-
about a public hearing.
Yes, but it was also about a change. that
Would you
was
like to write the
heard
letter,
about.
Charlotte, and get it to me tomorrow?
I'm just asking that it,
I know, and I'm offering, would you like to write the letter and get it tomorrow?
I would prefer not to, because I have 150 families I'm feeding for Christmas,
Well,
so.
I understand, but I'll do
I'm
the
just
best
saying
I
how we
can.
present it is important, so I
Understood.
would just like that to be in mind while you're writing it. Because the last letter was not presented well to the public.
Well, the last letter was announcing a public hearing, which was a very different process than this. And if anyone else other than Charlotte would like to write the letter, please do. And so, I mean, right now I'm working 18 hours a day at this job, so I'll just stop it. We all have commitments, and I get it. So I'll do the best of my ability. If someone else wants to write it, please feel free to. So anyway, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Finally, we gotta make a motion to go, well, let's read the memorial first, then we have to go to executive session, discuss with a particular person. So we're adjourning in memory of Anthony Russolo, Martha Crum, William Wallerwitz, Catherine Depew, William Freer, George Shealy, Richard Morgan, and Chris Rock, and all suffering from gun violence, the people of Israel and Palestine, and the people of Ukraine. We will adjourn when we adjourn in their memory. I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss a particular issue regarding a particular employee.
I'll make that motion.
Do you need me for the executive session, Mike, or no?
Do not. Thank you, Mary Lou. Appreciate it.
Okay, good night, everybody.
What? Oh, yeah, at 9:38.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?